on mute. Sorry. There we go. I redirected you guys. Man, I forgot I had to hurry up and get started because then you guys would be here by yourself. So I'm gonna do a Kohberger live, guys. Yeah. So let me. This should not turn off. So that was the closest I could get in order, guys. So this is actually a different live, but the other one it redirected you. But so I do want to get into Kohberger, but I'll give a quick couple thoughts since we just came from the Wade premiere. Like I said, there's 3 parts. That one has the most of the reading. So remember I ordered those kiosk messages and I only ordered them from like 2019 up until I think January. I forget. Oh, it would be I think the beginning of January or February. So I think some of those calls might actually be some of the ones with Rosemary might be towards the almost middle of February. I don't know. It's hard to tell, but there's going to be 3 parts. I'm going to get them all done this week. The third part is going to be all calls though. So the first 2 parts are the only parts that have messages, and then the third one is all calls. The second one has more calls than today, but I didn't want to. I wanted to do them in order, and all the kiosk messages came before the calls. So I was like, it's gonna suck that part 1's gonna be like mostly kiosk messages, but you guys, I am after this live, this Kohberger live, I'm gonna do I'm gonna upload a pre-recorded just those calls that we heard. If you guys just want to hear the calls, I'm gonna do those separately too. Oh, my hair looks flat. Anyway, hey guys. How are you? K-Core, thank you for joining. Hey, you were a member already, weren't you? Thank you for rejoining. I know you were a member at one point. Let me take a sip of this real quick. I haven't had one of these since, well, I don't know. I feel like it's been a couple weeks because I was starting to get sensitive from caffeine. I'm back, guys. I'm able to drink caffeine again and I'm okay. Okay, so let me say hi to a couple of people and then we're gonna start Kohberger stuff. Okay, so I missed a lot. I missed some interviews with the families. I missed there's an interview with, this is what I'm gonna start out with, is an interview. You remember Casey Arntz and her brother? I don't know if you remember that. If you rewind 2 years ago, after when they first arrested Bryan Kohberger, a couple people that knew him were coming forward. Casey Arntz's dad did an interview. His brother, her brother talked. Casey, all 3. So the girl and the boy, brother and sister, were friends with Bryan Kohberger, and they're talking about how, like, remember he was chubby and then he started doing heroin, he lost weight. So anyway, there's an article that they talk about I wanted to make sure that there's an article that they talk about their thoughts about his taking the plea deal. Now, the only problem is on my computer, you have to pay a monthly charge, but on my phone, you don't for the article. So I was going to, gosh, that live ended so much quicker than I thought I was gonna. I thought I was gonna have time to crop it all the screenshots from my phone and be able to read it, and so you guys could see what I'm reading. But man, that was quick. So I mean, I have it in my phone, so I could just read. It's crazy. Like your phone, you need to pay, but then when you try to open it on your computer, it won't. Or no, on your computer, you need to pay, but when you do it on your phone, you don't have to pay. So I'm not paying a monthly charge if I don't have to. Okay, so it's interesting though. It's I'm gonna read it. It's an article, their thoughts, and we will go from there. Hey, Penelope. How are you? Actually, while I'm getting that ready, I'll play a video. These, I mean, you guys might have seen some of these, but it's everything that I missed the last what 4 days that I've been gone in Columbus. I haven't, I don't know if you guys seen some of this stuff. So let's start out. Let me do this first. I'm going to start out doing a video while I get the screenshots ready. So did you guys see the one with Ethan's family? I'm going to start out with that one. And then there's a couple, Steve Goncalves does a couple more interviews. The professor does an interview. Bryan Kohberger's professor, the one that I read the article, she goes on News Nation. So I wanted to watch it all with you guys. Have you guys seen all of it? Or hopefully some of the stuff will be new to you guys. And like I said, for the Wade calls, you guys, I have them already, three parts. So I'll probably do part 2 tomorrow and part 3 the next day. So don't worry. I'm sure they'll be all out this week. I'll have them all out. Because I know today we only got a call and a half. But I had to go in order. I couldn't screw that up because that would be stupid. And then, like I said, I'm going to upload just the calls as pre-records if you guys don't like the whole thing. Okay, here we go. I'm going to play this and then I'll read the article after. So this one is the one with Ethan's family breaks their silence. Here we go.
Agreed to plead guilty to all counts. Shortly before we learned of the plea deal, Kana Whitworth sat down with the family of one of the victims, Ethan Chapin. I want to go back to Kana in Boise. Good morning, Kana.
Yeah, George, good morning. So the last time that Jim and Stacy Chapin saw their son Ethan alive, it was Parents' Weekend at the University of Idaho. They told me they left full of pride. Their 3 children, their triplets, were living their best lives. But that feeling was short-lived. It wasn't long after they learned that Ethan had been murdered in a quadruple homicide that thrust the town of Moscow into chaos. And this morning, for the first time, the Chapin family tells the story of how they stayed afloat.
We just decided maybe it was best to tell our story of Ethan literally one time. He deserves it. He deserves our story of him.
This morning, as the Idaho murder suspect prepares to accept a plea deal, the family of Ethan Chapin speaking publicly together for the first time since Ethan, his girlfriend Xana Kernodle, and her roommates Madison Mogan and Kaylee Goncalves were brutally murdered in an off-campus home at the University of Idaho.
I miss him every day. When you lose your son at 20, it's different. It's a different loss. And I miss him every single day. And I always will.
Ethan, a triplet with his siblings, Hunter and Maisie, all attending the University of Idaho together. Hunter and Maisie and their parents, Jim and Stacy, now telling their story in a new Prime Video docuseries, One Night in Idaho, The College Murders, remembering their 6'4", larger-than-life brother and son.
We played every sport together. Every time we went in the car, it was together, partied together. There was never a dull moment.
The night before Ethan was killed, Maisie brought him to her sorority formal. She now cherishes the text he sent her before bed.
So he started off by texting me. I think he said, "Dog, come hang out. We all want you here." And I said, "I'm going to bed." And then he said, "Love you." And I didn't even respond to that. I think I was asleep by then.
And the "I love you" kind of stood out, though.
Well, yeah, definitely.
Hunter, who pledged Sigma Chi with Ethan, says the next morning, a friend at the fraternity woke him up saying the police were at Xana's house.
Hunter Johnson came up to me and said, I was like, "Where's Ethan and Xana?" And he's like, "They're not here anymore." So, "What do you mean they're not here anymore?" He's like, "I think they were murdered last night."
Hunter was forced to call his family with the news, his parents in disbelief.
It drives me crazy because I've always wanted to protect my family. And there's really nothing there that I could have done. Instantly he was taken.
A suspect, Bryan Kohberger, arrested nearly 7 weeks later. With a bit of relief, the Chapins shifting their focus to their son's legacy, getting tattoos to honor him.
We all benefited from having Ethan in our lives for 20 years. It's a tremendous loss.
Now, the Chapins told me that they brought Ethan's ashes and his red Jeep home to one of their favorite places in Priest Lake, Idaho, where they live like Ethan every day to honor his legacy. For more on their story, you can catch One Night in Idaho, the College Murders. It premieres on July 11th on Prime Video. George.
Okay, Ken.
Oh, you guys, and there's this thing that in one of the groups that it's like a 42-minute. It's not the Night in Idaho because that didn't come out till what, the 11th or whatever. There's like a 42-minute like doc or what's about this case. I just kind of skimmed through it. I figured we could watch that at the end. I never watched it. It's called The Whole Story or something. Have you guys seen it? Sorry, I'm not texting. I'm just sending me these screenshots so I could read that article. Um 23. I just wanted to count how many were there. Okay. Have you guys seen that yet though? See, I'm a little behind because I was watching my brother's doggy. Okay, so let's do I'm gonna watch. This one is okay. So this one's a different interview. This is with Stephen Gonzalez with This Morning is the channel. I think I have like 3 with him. He gets
Well, we're hoping
around.
to speak to Steve.
Yeah. Okay. So that there's a non-dissemination order still. So I was actually looking at that because I was looking at I always like go through the new documents and stuff. So hold on a second. So people are writing, trying to get the non-dissemination order lifted. So you'll see like right here, this is they have a bunch of people combined. You got American Broadcasting, Daily Mail, East Idaho News, Court TV, Lewiston. So it's just the media, and it says, excuse me. So they basically argue, they say on July 2nd, 2025, Bryan Kohberger pled guilty to the murders of the 4 University of Idaho students to 1 count of burglary. Mr. Kohberger's plea sharply changed the Sixth Amendment, fair trial, First Amendment balance in this case. At the request of the state and with agreement of Mr. Kohberger, the court left the non-dissemination order in place until Mr. Kohberger's sentencing, which is set for July 23rd. However, the non-dissemination order and its infringement on the First Amendment rights of the media is no longer justifiable and should be vacated immediately. Accordingly, a coalition of media organizations, including and all these, and it says, respectfully move this court for leave to file their motion to vacate the non-dissemination order filed contemporaneously herewith. Okay, so the defense of public further request the opportunity to present oral argument on this issue at the court's earliest available opening. This motion is supported by the accompanying memorandum, the declaration of Rebecca Boone, in support of a motion to be heard and vacate the non-dissemination. So they're trying to get this vacated. There's actually, hold on. There's a couple different ones that wrote. This one is Scripps Media journalist, Idaho Statesman. Said, and he'll never face a jury to determine his guilt, nor will a jury have any role in determining whether the death penalty is proper punishment. All that remains is for the court, not a jury, to impose a sentence. But even then, the parties have waived a pre-sentence investigation. And Mr. Kohberger has agreed that he will not argue for anything less than consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. Even before Mr. Kohberger was arrested, the court entered and has enforced a non-dissemination order restricting individuals involved with the case from making extrajudicial statements. And so they want that to vacate. Says A and B, but Mr. Kohberger's change of plea and terms of this plea agreement have rendered this justification moot. In the absence of this justification, the non-dissemination order's infringement on the First Amendment is impermissible. Indeed, at the conclusion of the plea hearing, the state said only that it opposed the court's suggestion to discontinue the order. Because it would be easier for the parties in preparing for sentencing. This cannot justify the continued imposition of free speech. The non-dissemination order is now plainly overbroad and therefore runs afoul of the First Amendment. Accordingly, the Media Coalition respectfully requests that this court vacate the non-dissemination order. So yeah. I don't know. Hopefully it'll happen. And then there's a couple more articles talking about it's just basically the same thing about vacating it. So I won't read them all, but so yeah, I don't know. Hopefully it will eventually, and we'll be able to get some information, you know. Okay, so and then Cicely, I'll show you the signed confession that you were talking about. Hold on one second. It's in my file to share with you guys. The signed confession that he signed, and then I'll go over his old friend's article, what they said. Let me just do this real quick since I'm doing the the legal documents. Okay, so here it is. Oh, so here is the signed confession that he signed. So written factual basis, basically the same that they read in court. I hereby admit responsibility to count 1 burglary, which requires the following: November 13th, Latah, Idaho, unlawful entry of residence located 1122, and then murder in first degree, which requires the following elements: November 13th in Latah County, state of Idaho, the willful, unlawful, deliberate with premeditation and with malice of forethought killing, murder, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee's and Ethan, and then he signed it right here. Is he left-handed? He has handwriting like me, real sloppy. Is he left-handed or right-handed? I never paid attention to. I'll have to look that up. But that's his signature. So there's that. Okay. Actually, let me exit out all this and then let's read that article. I just screenshot it from my phone so I don't have to pay another monthly subscription, and then so we could read it like that. All right, guys. Here we go. I hope it how come? See, why I did it in order, but somehow it did that. You got to be kidding. Let me see what this. I made sure they were in order. Ants grew up Pocono Mountains. Let me see real quick. I know this is the first one. Yeah, that's right. I don't know why there's this extra hanging right over here. Okay. You know what I'm gonna have to do? I'm gonna have to read it on my thing because somehow I downloaded them in order and somehow they freaking got out of order. Okay, so I know this is the first one. Okay, I have them in order on my phone. It's interesting though, guys. So it really is what they have to say. Okay. And if you guys want to, I have a compilation of all of them like interviewed talking about them, about Bryan, like at the beginning, but this is after he pled. So, okay, so it says, childhood friends of Bryan Kohberger, who pleaded guilty Wednesday to stabbing 4 University of Idaho students to death in November 2022, have tracked his murder case from afar and said they felt shocked the former Pennsylvania resident suddenly agreed to a plea deal to spare his life. I won't lie, I kind of spiraled yesterday, Casey Arntz, 32, told the Idaho Statesman in a text Thursday. Did he ever have thoughts like that before? Did he ever think that he wanted to kill me or my friends? Were we spared because we were friends with him? Arntz and her younger brother Thomas grew up together with Kohberger in the Pocono Mountains near the Pennsylvania state line with New Jersey, among a small circle of friends. They spent time together playing video games. I'll just have to see what order from here. Okay. Spend time playing video games after school, as well as getting outdoors in the heavily forested region. As Kohberger got into drugs in high school, they said a distance developed. Kohberger later overcame heroin addiction, with the sporadic exception they hadn't spoken in years. what? Which made his arrest at his parents' Pennsylvania home in December 2022 so startling. He had been there awkward because this is where it's going to get out of order. Hold on. So the next one will be, oh no, I guess it is. It is kind of in order. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So he had been their awkward, chubby teenage friend with heightened ability to observe and wit to match, they said. Now he was accused of killing 4 students on the other side of the country in a nationally known investigation that unimaginably ended in their hometown. The victims were Madison Mogans, Kaylee Goncalves, both 21, Xana and Ethan, both 20. Each suffered multiple wounds in the attack at an off-campus home on King Road in Moscow. Prosecutor Bill Thompson told the court Wednesday the allegations floored okay, it goes this way. Hold on. Oh yeah, here it is. The allegations floored them then, and similar emotions rushed back this week. Okay. Yeah, I guess this is in order. Cool. Okay. After Kohberger 30 admitted he repeatedly stabbed the 4 college undergraduates with what prosecutors said was a large fixed blade knife he bought on Amazon in March 2022 while living in Pennsylvania. The prosecution contended that Kohberger used such a knife in the killings, bringing it with him on his move a few months later to Pullman for a PhD program at Washington State University, and left a K-Bar brand leather sheath behind with his DNA at the crime scene. On Wednesday, Kohberger pleaded guilty to the 4 counts of first-degree murder and a count of felony burglary to avoid a possible death sentence at trial. He agreed to maximum sentences for each, which is likely to see him spend the rest of his life in prison. Kohberger will have no chance of parole and he can never file an appeal. According to the terms of the agreement, a sentencing hearing is scheduled for July 23rd. Donna Yazwiak, Kohberger's high school guidance counselor, reacted with a surprise. Actually, I was hoping that he was not the murderer who killed these 4 students, she said in an email to Statesman. I hope that his family will survive this horrendous ordeal and be able to get on with their lives. I also hope that the victims' relatives gain much needed closure and heal after this tragedy. As a society, we may never know the motivation for the murders or if Bryan Kohberger has any remorse for his violent actions. And let the inside deal with him. Kohberger's admissions in court finally put any question of his culpability to bed for Jack Bayless, 31, another of their group of friends at the time. You wouldn't plead guilty to it unless you did that, he said in a phone interview Thursday. If you were framed, you'd be fighting tooth and nail. That's what I think. But I mean, like I said, that's what I would think. But I've never been in that situation, but I would think the same thing. Like, if I didn't kill 4 people, there's no way I wouldn't think I would be able to just say, you know what I'm saying? I don't care. I would fight tooth and nail, like they said, because the principle, like, are you kidding me? Okay, so Kohberger's decision to take people's lives was additionally disheartening, he said, because he had kicked his drug habit and seemingly had a life direction. But the desire to learn about people who commit murder, an area of interest for Kohberger, took hold, and he likely wanted to see whether he could get away with the perfect crime, Bayless said. I think he did it to see what it felt like, to experience it. If he wanted to write a paper about what killers feel and why they kill, to be accurate, you have to experience it yourself to truly understand it, Bayless said. To get into the mind of a killer, you have to be a killer, would be my guess. Casey Arntz told the Statesman she had conflicting emotions about how, after 2.5 years of legal proceedings for her former friend, acknowledged he was responsible. Acknowledged he was responsible for the early morning quadruple homicide. perhaps the most talked about crime in Idaho history. She felt for the victims' families, especially those upset that the death penalty was no longer an option with the plea bargain, but welcomed the case nearing its conclusion. I'm disgusted that he could actually do something so heinous, she said. I understand why the families are so upset. They were starved for justice, and I would 100% be too. However, there was never any guarantee that he'd be given the death penalty. So I think sorry. So I think him taking the plea deal was better for everyone. He's locked up for life. Let the inside deal with him. So that's a picture of him. Thomas Arns, 29, shared his sister's sentiments. The result Wednesday removed any chance his childhood friend could be acquitted and get away with murder, he said. I personally feel relieved with the acceptance of the guilty plea, Arns told the Statesman, and he would pray for the 4 victims' families. I'm deeply sorry that Bryan's parents have to live with this as well. I've always thought they were kind people, and they didn't deserve this. And for Bryan, God have mercy on his soul. He was kind of non-existent. For Ben Ruppers, 33, a former criminology graduate school colleague of Kohberger's at WSU, Wednesday's guilty plea felt past due. The U.S. justice system is built upon the belief that a person is innocent until proven guilty, he said, and yet his former classmate's DNA at the crime scene with no other suspects strengthened his own suspicions. Still, Kohberger's arrest left him horrified, he recalled. What surprises me at this point is that it dragged out so long, as I thought that a plea deal would never be reached. Roberts told the Statesman by phone Thursday, my general impression was he was not going to stop fighting it, and to all of the sudden have this about face was very surprising, but a pleasant surprise. Roberts spent several weeks just a few desks away from Kohberger in the days leading up to the close of the fall 2022 semester, just days and weeks after the murders. His graduate school classmate rarely exhibited much in the way of emotion around him, but also did not necessarily set off any red flags, he said. I noticed that unless he was deliberately trying to put on an appearance, if he didn't have the mask, he was kind of non-existent or hollow, I guess, Robert said. It's kind of like you're staring into an abyss. There's something human supposed to be there, and it isn't. A casual hunter, Robert said. He's felt bad in the past when he shot and killed a deer. He said he couldn't even fathom stabbing a person to death. I just can't even begin to get inside the head of somebody who could do something like that and then attend class like it's business as usual, Robert said. That's just completely alien to me. Robert said he did not watch Wednesday's change of plea hearing. He didn't want to hear Kohberger's voice or see his face again, even though the latter has been difficult to escape the past 2 years, he noted. He was glad the high-profile case finally came to an end and without the need for months-long trial. The first thing I said was that it was about damn time that the poor thing was put to rest, Robert said. We will heal. For now, the court's gag order in the closely watched case, which restricts attorney and their agents, including members of law enforcement for the state, is still in effect. Thompson asked that it remain so through sentencing, which Kohberger's defense did not oppose. The University of Idaho released a statement this week after word broke that Kohberger planned to change his plea to guilty in the shocking crime. We keep the families of the victims in our hearts as each deals with this outcome in their own way. The state's namesake university wrote in the statement, we will never forget the 4 incredible lives taken on King Road. They are forever Vandals, and each holds a place in our Vandal family. Since that fateful day in November 2022, our university has become stronger, more intent on its purpose, and more supportive of each other. While we will not forget, we will heal. Similarly, Moscow Mayor Art Beat in office in 2022 when the murders took place and upended the community, shared optimism that the city's residents might finally be freed from the clutches of this tragic incident. I recognize and understand that we all desire for justice, or all desire justice for the victims and their families, he said in an emailed statement. My heart and that of our entire community go out to the families of the victims. It is my hope that this resolution can begin to provide a small measure of closure for the families in our community. What is clear is that no matter what form of justice would have taken, nothing will bring back Ethan, Madison, Xana, and Kaylee. And our world will be forever darkened because of it. WSU's comment after Kohberger's hearing was more succinct. A statesman request to speak with professors in its criminal justice and criminology department who knew and taught Kohberger, including the semester he killed the U of I students, was again declined. Our hearts go out to the families, friends, and colleagues. We do not have anything to add at this time. One question remains for everyone. Why? Why did Bryan choose to take these 4 young lives, thereby essentially ending his own to some degree? That question was on the mind of Casey Arntz, Kohberger's Pennsylvania friend, thrust into the spotlight and forced to deal with her own form of grief over the past 2+ years. I wasn't as close to him as my brother or my other friends, but we still hung out and talked a lot, she said. He was in my parents' house. I was alone with him. I guess the one thing I would say to him is what everyone wants to say to him. Why would you do this? Why would you take the innocent lives of 4 beautiful people? I can't even begin to imagine what he would say. How does someone justify their actions when they're so morbid? Okay, so that's that article. Okay, hold on. Now I'll save that for the end. Let's play let's watch the professor interview. Now I read the article, but she went on News Nation. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I haven't watched it yet. I just saw that it was here and I saved it for the live to watch it with you guys. Actually, there's 2 of them that have it, but let's watch this one. Okay. How many have seen the one with the professor? The serial killer professor? I mean, she's not a serial killer, but oh, she's good. She's good. She stayed with us till today. Then my mom dropped her off at her other grandma's house today. So she just left today. Hi, Elon, Amber, Geraldine. Okay, cool. Let's watch it. I haven't either. All right.
I want to bring now, though, and we're doing exclusive.
Oh, wait, hold on. I don't have my earphones in. Hold on. Because I want to listen too, because I have not heard it. Okay. Whoa, I'm loud.
By her renowned forensic psychologist, Dr. Catherine Ramslin. As you may know, she was Bryan Kohberger's professor and advisor at DeSales University in Pennsylvania. She has not spoken publicly about Bryan Kohberger until now. She's been on this show talking about other cases, but she's been very, very careful not to talk about Kohberger because of the trial, because she was going to be a witness at the trial, and she now feels comfortable to open up to us. And we've got so many questions, Dr. Ramslin, that I've got so many questions I've wanted to ask you for so long. I want to start with, how did you first meet Bryan Kohberger? What classes of yours was he in?
Okay, I want to be just clear that I'm still within the FERPA limitations that protect students and student information. So I will talk within that. I met him in the fall of 2018 when he came to DeSales University. He had an associate's degree and he was going to get into our 4-year program. as a psychology major. He selected the forensic track, which made him an advisee for me because I managed the forensic track. And he was also in my class that semester.
And Dr. Elmelson talks about FERPA. I should have mentioned that there's a law, it's a federal law, I believe, that she is not allowed to talk about certain aspects of a student, their grades, certain parts of their academic life. It's almost like a HIPAA. So she's going to tell us what she can, but unless Bryan Kohberger signs off, she's legally not allowed to talk about certain elements of his academic career. So just keep that in mind if there's some things that Dr. Ramsland can't answer. What was your perception of him?
He seemed like eager to be in the classroom. He was polite. He was respectful, intense, and curious. And there was no reason for me to think that he was anything other than someone who was really interested in this potential career.
Was there anything looking back now that was strange about him or that you noticed?
When I look back, there really isn't anything that stood out to me. I think when you're a teacher, your instinct is to accept students at face value. You don't, start with suspicions or, and there really weren't any red flags. He was always really quite respectful and grateful. He would thank me for things. He was attentive. He would do the work. I didn't have any concerns.
I think it was 4 classes that you taught him in. What were those classes?
There were 3 undergraduate courses in the forensic track that I taught, and he was in all of them. Well, one was Introduction to Forensic Psychology. Another was my death investigation class, which was called Psychological Sleuthing. And the third one was called Dangerous Minds, the Psychology of Antisocial Behavior. And then he got into the graduate program in criminal justice for a master's degree. And he took a course with me called Behavioral Criminology.
Is there anything, Dr. Ramsland, when you look back and you think about the curriculum of those classes, and not getting into his specific experience, but when you think about what you taught in those classes that you think, oh my gosh, he may have used that in what he's now accused of doing here in Idaho?
Well, the antisocial behavior course involves serial killers and mass murderers, and we do a lot of case analysis. I use two books that I wrote. One was written with the BTK killer, whom you just mentioned, and his decision process and the crimes and how he thought about them and felt about them and what was it like for him, to be caught. So that's a very intense book. And also I have one called The Mind of a Murderer, which was about various behavioral experts over the past century who interviewed killers, mass murderers, and serial killers to get as close as possible, spending a lot of time with them to get as close as possible to their process of becoming a criminal. And so he would have been exposed to that. I think now looking back, I would look at maybe some of the things that interested him as being, something that gives me pause. But we always have to think about, we all know, everyone in this field, forensic psychology and criminology, know that we could have students who might become offenders. But we also know that the vast majority of our students will not, and will instead go into a field like law enforcement, FBI, Secret Service, that make the world better, that protect us. So we know that there's always a risk that we're attracting somebody who wants to do something terrible. Hoping we won't ever have that, but in my case, I did.
Can you say, Dr. Ramsland, what it was looking back now that sort of raises your eyebrows specifically in terms of things in the class?
I think just the idea of wanting to study offenders and what their thought process was, how they felt about their crimes, wanting to study that, and then finding out that this is a person who then is now saying he's guilty of doing these things. I have to look at the framework of what I taught and wonder, did I inspire him in some way? Did I, but I can't second guess that, because I may have inspired somebody else to become an FBI agent. And that's, unfortunately, in this field, that's what we live with.
I mean, you've been studying serial killers most of your life, but when you talk about the fact that you may have, what you taught may have inspired this, that's got to be hard for you to process, I would imagine.
It's terrible, very hard. And it's not just what happened to the victims. I really thought Bryan Kohberger was a promising student who really could have made a mark in this career in a very positive way. I thought that. So disappointed, angry, and very shocked that this is who he turned out to be, and horrified for the victims and their families. Just horrified. I mean, I worked with Dennis Rader closely for 5 years. I met the victims' families. I saw the devastation that these kinds of acts can have. And I have to always keep that in mind when I'm teaching these subjects.
What did you think when you first heard that Bryan Kohberger, your former student, was arrested for this?
I was completely floored. I didn't believe it. And his demeanor that we saw on media was that he was confident that he was going to be able to prove his innocence. So I wanted to wait and see. I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. But as months go by and he kept saying that he had an alibi, and I wondered, well, why are you sitting in jail? Give us your alibi, get out. And that wasn't happening. And then it was really when he said his alibi, and it was clearly not an alibi, and he would have known that, certainly from all the classes that he had through undergraduate and graduate work. He would have understood that wasn't really an alibi. I think that was when I was really, floored that this is my student who has done these things.
You mentioned, you studied BTK, the serial killer. You met with him many times in prison. This is what you do in a hope to prevent these things from further happening and understand the mind of a serial killer. Would you want to study Bryan Kohberger? Have you put any thought into that? Is that something that you think could be possible?
I've been thinking about that for 2.5 years. I would. This is my work. If he wanted to do that, I would. And within the framework of this is what we do to try to look at developmental trajectories, the triggers, so that we can see the red flags faster. We can prevent people like this from wreaking the havoc that they do. So if he wanted to do that, I know that he's got the intellectual capacity to do it, to be self-reflective, to help think through how his life came to this. And so I would definitely do it if he were willing. And it would be hard. But I think because I have so much material from him, I have questions for him that I think nobody else but me could ask.
And just my last question, Dr. Ramsland, you are the person that I think of who, if anyone could see through someone and see that they have a secret side, I would think it would be you, because this has been your life's work and trying to figure that out. And in a sense, it almost feels like Bryan Kohberger even had you fooled.
Well, I study the ones who are really good at it, because I want to truly try to understand what can we see in the constellation of behaviors that will tip us off earlier. because people who are really good at passing as normal and keeping their dark side hidden can fool people, can fool all the experts for a long period of time. I think anybody in my field will tell you they can be duped by a really skillful, predatory type of person. So, you know, I'm not going to say I'm the person who can spot this. I can see things like if you have a rigid personality and you're threatening, you know, those are red flags that are very clear. Or you have a mental instability and you're drawing, you know, violent images. These are things we can see and we can anticipate. But if somebody's presenting themselves as a completely normal human being, engaged in life the way, you know, that according to our expectations, it's really hard to see through that. And as a teacher, I am not initially suspicious that students are there for the wrong reasons. And so I think some of us have what I would call a cognitive disadvantage, because we are giving the benefit of the doubt to students. And I think that's certainly what happened. That's why I would want to work with him and study him, because I want to understand how he was able to completely fool me.
Well, it'll be interesting to see as this moves along, if that indeed ends up happening. Dr. Ramsland, appreciate you coming on tonight and sharing this insight into your former student. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Interesting, yeah. Because I mean, she would know. I think that'd be interesting because I mean that's what she studies, and getting into the mind of these serial killers. Because I think he would have been a serial killer. Like I think potentially he wasn't one to do it out of like a passion or for a reason. It was the act of killing. So I mean, I think potentially he could have been if he didn't get caught. What do you guys think? Or do you guys think it would have been a one-time thing? I don't. I think he would have tried to get better and better. His motive would have been like to try to perfect it, but also I think he liked the feeling. I mean, like of killing. I think it's like both. Just my opinion. Like, I don't know, you know, it could be totally wrong, but I think he would have done it again. All right, let's watch this. Here's another interview with Steve. So this is the second one with because it wasn't the very first one he did after the plea with Banfield. So he did 2 with her. I'm pretty sure it was, if I'm remembering right. Let's see what he has to say.
Steve, you made the trip to Boise with your family. Did any prosecutors or anyone from the prosecutor's office reach out to you or anyone with your family either before the hearing, at any point outside the court, or after the hearing?
The only people who reach out to me are agents that aren't part of this court system that have warned me to be careful with this court system. And shame on me for not listening. Shame on me for letting Kaylee down. It's my mistake. I'm sorry, Kaylee. I'm truly sorry that I didn't get you a prosecutor who really believed what happened to you could only be fixed with life. Fixed, you know, you killed 4 people, and to take 1 life for 4 seems like pretty simple math. But these guys describe this as a win, even though they don't ask us what a win looks like. So I'm sorry. I apologize to my daughter. I let her down, and it's been a terrible day. It's been terrible.
You know, Steve, I'll go on the record saying there's been no stronger advocate for your daughter than you. I get it. It's been a terrible day, but I really don't want you going forward thinking you haven't done everything. You have done everything and more for Kaylee. Look, I see the system. I know the system. Shannon, weigh in. You know the system. You're a lawyer. You're in Idaho. I haven't seen an advocate like Steve has been for his daughter in any case I've covered.
You know, Steve is, he's a rock, right? He's a rock for the family. He's a rock for this prosecution moving forward and gathering evidence and facts. And I mean, we've had dozens of meetings where we basically sat in and told them what they should be doing, and them sitting down and taking notes about things. But we all the time just trying to keep confident in the prosecution. And you know, it was not what the victims wanted. It wasn't what the Goncalves family wanted, and the way the process was for notifying them, and it just puts a bad taste in your mouth about all of it. And you know, and even talking with Steve and Christy today, the tone of the judge today was, I think they felt, was completely improper. You know, and so there was a lot of things that, you know, you walk away after 2.5 years of just being completely demonized and hassled and trolled and you name it on the internet and everybody else. And for it to end this way, not only the outcome of it, but also the way that it happened, just seems really unfair and completely uncalled for.
Steve, you've got a month to prepare a victim's impact statement. You can say anything to this court. I know you haven't prepared it yet, but do you have a preview of what you want to say to this court when you get to stand up and what you want to say to Bryan Kohberger?
I was kind of proud of my kids today because I didn't go into the courtroom, and then when it was all said and done, after Hitler tried to turn it into his secretary being busy and his lines being flooded with phone calls was more pressing than 4 dead souls that were killed in their bed. My kids came out of it and said they don't think they ever want to go back into a courtroom again. So I don't even think we're actually going to even do a victim statement. There's no point in it. It's pointless exercise. I respect that some family was in my position when, you know, years ago, and they probably felt a lot like how I feel right now and thought that they should be able to speak and address the courtroom and try to fix the courtroom. That's probably what these victim statements were supposed to be, but they're not that anymore. And we're G's, we're Goncalveses. We don't participate in pointless exercise that are a waste of our time. What we do is we speak to the media, we speak to people like you, we make change happen from inside out. And that's probably why they get mad at us and they push back at us and they say that, you know, we're combative and this and that. You know what we are? When somebody says they're 100% for their daughter and they're a G, they're 100%. And that means some little plea deal that you made in the back alley isn't good enough. It's not good enough.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and
Comes on so long or so loud. Okay. So then the next one is, so I know I played this part where they're outside the courthouse, and I know I played them like walking up to the courthouse, but this angle, I never played this angle where you get to hear a little bit more of what he says that I didn't get to play the first time. There's 2 of them. Wait, hold on. There's one more. Yeah, there's 2 that are going to be like that. Okay, here you go. So we watched this together, but
Is this justice?
no.
No. Are you guys going to be in the courtroom today? Okay. Yeah, I heard you might protest outside. You're not going in. I saw your post. You said it's in the judge's hands now.
Yeah. You want to go on? So you in here.
Text me if anything comes up or you need anything.
Okay. Do you need me to send me the link?
Yeah, send me the link.
You got it. I got you. I got you. I got it. Oh, I got it. Good. We're getting okay.
Your car or something? What? Maybe we'll just walk to your car. want to do that? Yeah, it's going to be a little awkward. All right. Let's give us some space, guys. Yes. Yep. Yep.
So he says, do you want to walk to your car or something? And he says, oh, do you want to? He's like, yeah, this could get a little awkward.
Yeah, that's why I'm in right now. I got to go inside.
Do you think there's a chance the judge will reject this plea deal?
No, I don't think so.
Really? So you're not holding out hope still?
Okay. Now, one more. I think it plays the outside, but hold on.
Alex, what more are you hearing from the families of these victims?
Well, it's mixed in what we're hearing from them. There are some family members who are quite angry about this deal. They say they were not adequately brought into the fold to decide on this. And there are others who say that this is a way to move forward, that there won't be years of appeals because of this. As part of this deal, he can't appeal. Had he gone to trial, which the trial could have been 3 or 4 months, and whatever it was, being a death penalty case, there would have been potentially years to decades of appeals coming up, that this gets a guaranteed conviction and that they won't have to go through the process many years dealing with this. But there are families, Ethan Chapin's family, he's one of the victims, Ethan Chapin, they are for it. The Goncalves family, Kaylee Goncalves being one of the victims, they are very much against this. We heard from her father a moment ago arriving at court. Here's what he said.
The judge could hear one thought from you that he should remember. What is it?
He's going to own this. He's going to inherit what Thompson did, and he's the only one that can fix it. He's the only one who can make it right. One man shouldn't decide what 4 souls are worth.
You said they made a deal with the devil?
Well, yeah, they did. What is that, Thompson? Thompson made a deal with Kohberger.
You heard that there. He says they made a deal with the devil, making a deal with Bryan Kohberger. He is very much against this. He's making his voice heard today, but unlikely the judge is going to torpedo this deal. As the prosecution agrees to it, the defense agrees to it as well. The families can make their voices heard, but it appears, Kira, that this is going to go forward, despite what you heard there from Steve Goncalves.
And also getting word from one of our producers there, Alex, security unusually tight around the county courthouse ahead of this plea hearing and this change of plea. Large and growing police presence, we're told, both inside and outside of where you are. Police using dogs as well. Definitely a tense time there. And
okay. All right. This one. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna read a couple articles and then we could watch that 42-minute documentary is called The Whole Story or something. I have not watched it yet, so I think it could be very interesting. What do you guys think? Have you guys seen it? It's called The Whole Story, Idaho Murders. Put a 1 if you've seen it and a 2 if not. I'm curious because I've never even heard of it. I can't wait for the July 11th one though. I think that looks really good. It'll be interesting. Okay, so let me read a couple articles. So this one looked interesting. I haven't read these ahead of time, these ones, so I just saw the titles looked interesting. So let's look at his face. Let's see if it is. Alrighty. So this is called Bryan Kohberger fancied himself as a criminal mastermind. So why did he make so many dumb mistakes? Well, that's one way to fail criminology school. Bryan Kohberger had been in a criminology PhD program, Washington State, when he drove to nearby Moscow, slaughtered the 4 University of Idaho undergrads. But for that crime, this student gets an F. It wasn't that he didn't try to cover his tracks. Kohberger clearly had a firm grasp of common investigative techniques and took pains to subvert them, including scrubbing his car meticulously, cleaning after the killings. But his attempts were so half-baked that they only made him seem more suspicious, according to prosecutors. See, I think if he didn't drop that sheath, I don't think they would have caught him. So, I mean, you could only control so much stuff. You could have it all planned. But then in the moment of things happen and stuff happens. So did Xana come up and like get him off track? Like, remember somebody said they think Xana came up during when he was upstairs and kind of like, so maybe it made him drop the sheath, fumble around or something. That's it. I want to know what you guys think. Do you guys think if he didn't drop that sheath, do you think they would have caught him? Put a 1 if you think they would have caught him if he didn't drop it, a 2 if not. A 1 if you think they would, because yeah, 1's always yes for my questions. So 1 if you think, yeah, that they would have caught him, and 2 if they wouldn't have. I don't think they would have. If he wouldn't have dropped it, I think he would have got away with it. That was the one, that was the bit like his mistake, I feel like. Yeah, the phone being turned off, but see, he probably wouldn't have had to worry about it if he wouldn't have dropped that sheath. So wait, 2 meant no, right? They wouldn't have caught him. Yeah, okay. 1 if they would have, and 2 if they wouldn't have. Yeah, I don't think they would have either. Okay, let's see what this person says. Experts say he attempted to leave no traces and was more careful than many killers, but he made some obvious mistakes. Also, the phone thing was a mistake, turning it off just for that time period. He was certainly smarter than most murderers. Former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani told the Post, but it wasn't the perfect crime. Rahmani noted that it took weeks for authorities to find the suspect, which is atypical now with advances in technology. These are some of Kohberger's biggest blunders. Leaving his DNA behind. The murder weapon was never found, but a knife sheath smudged with male DNA at the scene became the prosecution's best piece of physical evidence. Rahmani said that the blunder revealed that the killings were harder than Kohberger expected, betraying that it's a chaotic scene when you're stabbing multiple people and you're just by yourself. It's not easy, he added. Another former prosecutor and court TV anchor, Vinnie Politan. I don't know if I've ever even said his last name. Why was I always thinking it was Politini? Politan, I don't know. Said Kohberger likely ran into an unexpected situation when one of the victims, Madison, wasn't alone. She and best friend Kaylee were sleeping together in the same bed. And this is the same description of item, 1 Defiant silver flashlight, 4 medical style gloves, white Arizona jean company large t-shirt champion. They're just showing what some of the stuff they got out of his apartment. Okay. It says they were the first victims and dropped the sheath likely revealed that they did not die without a struggle. The women fought back, and in the struggle, the knife sheath fell out. Politan speculated. Then, when he was leaving, he ran into Xana, then Ethan, 2 more unexpected victims, Politan explained. He was exhausted and didn't have time to think, so he left without any realizing that he didn't have the sheath. Prosecutors said Kohberger purchased a K-bar military-style knife, a strap sheath, and a sharpener on Amazon while living at his parents' house in Pennsylvania months before the murders. He seemed to know his online purchases might be traced. He used a gift card, which can be anonymous, to make the payments, and even tried to delete his purchase history. But why make the purchase online at all when anyone can buy a knife with a cash at Walmart or truck stop? Defense attorney David Seltzer said, clearly Kohberger left breadcrumbs linking him to the crimes, and we will never know why or if they were heat-of-the-moment mistakes. Seltzer said he wouldn't be surprised if mental health played a role in Kohberger's crimes. Driving his own car to the crime scene, then cleaning it too well. Kohberger's white Hyundai Elantra is what first landed him on the detective's radar. The thing is, though, with all the cameras, you can't escape like Ring cameras. I mean, you can't plan for every Ring camera and be able to drive and escape them all. You're going to be on some cameras nowadays, which is crazy. It's good for crimes and murders, I guess, because you catch them and people maybe be more leery or scared, but it sucks for a privacy type stuff, you know? Security camera footage showed the car circling the victim's block, parking behind their house, then speeding away after the crime. A search of a white Elantra drivers included Kohberger, who had been pulled over near the university campus months before the killings. Okay, he looks scared. Okay. He did thoroughly clean the interior of the car afterward, prosecutor said, but that only made him seem more suspicious, Latah County prosecutor attorney Bill Thompson revealed Wednesday. I think we can all look to our own cars. These compartments in the doors where you try to keep them clean, where you put stuff, there's always some degree of crud in there. They were spotless, Thompson said. Defendant's car had been meticulously cleaned inside. Thompson noted that Kohberger had previously written a paper on crime scene evidence collection, making his deep clean even more suspicious. His phone also tracked him driving to Moscow, the town where the killings happened, at least 23 times before the murders. He kept his own phone. Anyone who's watched Breaking Bad knows to use a prepaid burner cell phone when they're up to no good. But Kohberger kept a traceable cell phone. He was careful to deactivate the device before driving to Moscow on the night of the murders, but it was only off between around 2:30 and 4:45, the exact window of the killings. He also reactivated the phone in another town 25 miles away from his apartment. Romani said Kohberger should have just left his phone at home. He was careful, the lawyer said, but he's not a genius. Taken out the trash, Kohberger knew his DNA could tie him to the crime scene. He wore latex gloves to the supermarket and hid trash that contained his hair or saliva. At one point, during the 4 days he was surveilled at his parents' Pennsylvania home by the FBI prior to his arrest, Kohberger was observed putting trash from his family's house into neighbors' garbage bins around 4 a.m. Kohberger clearly knew investigators searched suspects' garbage, but it apparently did not occur to him that agents might be watching the house, or they'd notice him dumping garbage in the wee hours. Yep. Okay, here's another one. Ooh, did you guys see this? I'm going to play this. I almost forgot about this real quick. Hold on. I'm going to play this. Hold on, you guys. I'll share that in a minute. I want to play this first. I forgot I had this. Have you guys seen her videos? She works for, shoot, I forget where I don't know if she'll say it in this because I think I watched her at YouTube, but she does like the videos for, like I said, I forget who. Oh, but let's watch. Hold on.
Of the Idaho 4 crimes, showing Kohberger's movements. It's put together by evidence given to me by media companies.
Sorry, I wanted to go full screen.
Like Netflix and others, including more recently, Dateline, who hired me to do their 3D modeling for their project. I'm going to include a lot of information in this 2-part series, where you can see exactly what took place from moment to moment. Let's get started. In this illustration, we're going to start at 3:30 a.m. At this time, everyone is asleep except for Xana. Looking inside the home, we can see where everybody was. Starting at the 3rd floor, we can see where Maddie and Kaylee were sleeping. Maddie was sleeping on the edge of the bed, while Kaylee was sleeping near the wall. As we go out and drop down to the 2nd floor, we can see Dylan's room directly under Maddie's room. Continuing across the living room onto the other side of the home, we see Xana's room. She's sitting in bed scrolling on her phone while Ethan sleeps next to her. Minutes ago, she had just finished ordering DoorDash and has all the lights on while she waits. The last roommate to mention is Beth, whose room is on the 1st floor, directly below the living room. As most of them all sleep, Kohberger pulled into the neighborhood for the first time this night at precisely 3:30 a.m. We know this due to a home security camera that captures the intersection and records the coming and going of anybody that enters that neighborhood. As we continue, Kohberger drives past the home and notices that all the lights on the 2nd floor are still on. He drives on and loops around the apartment complex building. Because of the home security timestamp, we're able to know how long it took to drive this path. On his first pass, it took him 2 minutes and 38 seconds, and this is him leaving on the first pass. Now let's look at his next 2 passes and record the times. This is pass 2 of him entering and leaving. And now this is pass 3 of him entering and leaving. When we do the math, we can see how long he took each pass. The last 2 passes were normal without any stopping, but on his first pass, he took an additional 42 seconds to creep by the house or even stop for a time to stare into the windows with the lights on. All this information has been coming from camera A, but there is a second camera located behind the apartment complex building, and we're going to call that camera B located here. This camera allows us to see how long it took to get from point A to point B, and between the 3 security cameras' data, it took between 35 and 37 seconds. What this means is you didn't stop or park somewhere or go into a different direction. He simply drove straight from point A to point B at regular speed. These times help us understand the DoorDash delivery window. According to court documents, 2 times are noted. One is 3:59 a.m. and the other is 4 a.m. Bringing back our passage chart, we can see that the DoorDash time of 3:59 happens after Kohberger has left the neighborhood and before he returns for his last pass at 4:04. It is possible that the DoorDash driver saw Kohberger as he was parking his car, because a timestamp of 3:59 could be reflected when he took the photo of the food at the front door instead of the time he arrived. So it is possible he witnessed Kohberger staring at the windows as he drove by. Continuing, as the driver leaves, Xena turns off all the lights, sits on her bed, and scrolls on her phone as she eats her food. A few minutes later, Kohberger enters the neighborhood for the last time, but this time, as he drives by the home, he sees all the lights are off. At the camera B location, he turns around to head back to the residence as shown in this video. When he returns to the front of the house, he does something unusual, so much so that it's noted in the arrest affidavit. On page 6, it states, when the suspect vehicle 1 is in front of Kings Road residence, it appeared to unsuccessfully attempt to park or turn around in the road. It goes on to say that he continued onto the intersection where he did a 3-point turn. The 3-point turn was captured on camera A, which has a timestamp of 4:06. He appears to be calm and not overly anxious with his driving. As he heads back in the direction of the residence, he takes one last look at the windows to make sure all the lights are off. As he begins to drive around the end of the apartment complex, camera B records the time of 4:07. Fast forwarding a little bit, Kohberger drives to the back parking lot away from other residences. He takes a few minutes looking around and sees that nobody's out and that all is quiet. He eventually grabs his things, gets out of the vehicle, and begins walking to the back of the home. At approximately 4:13 a.m., he begins to make entry. As he steps in, he takes a minute to make sure everything is quiet and that nobody is truly up. He walks to the entrance of the living room and looks around. He continues to be cautious and stands there listening. Feeling confident, he continues upstairs. As he makes his way to Maddie's room, the time is about 4:14. Meanwhile, 2 minutes later, Xena takes a break from TikTok and walks into the kitchen. Evidence shows her activity on the app stopped at 4:16. As she enters the kitchen, she's a little shocked to see the sliding glass door wide open. And at the same time, she hears a serious commotion going on upstairs. Hey everyone, I don't usually ask, but I'm building a small production company to bring you more exciting stories, and I'd love your support. If you'd like to help out and get some cool perks, or own the 3D model file I created for this animation, please send me a DM and then drop a hashtag Azget in the comments, so I know to look for your messages.
Okay, so it's Azget, sorry, Azget. So what she said basically, as far as the DoorDash, yeah, it was possible that she could have seen her. Now, parking next to him, no, because I think we're all in agreement that he parked in the back. Um, but I guess how do we know that the DoorDash? Wait a minute. How do we know the DoorDash driver dropped it off out front? Because maybe they have directions and that they go around back. You know how you could put in directions of like where the DoorDash drops it off? What if she did drop it off around back? I didn't even think about that, guys. I was just picturing her up front, but I got Casey. We're fine. It's at we're already shared it. Okay, so hold on. Let me see something.
That all is pointing to the back of the home.
Yeah, so like what if she went in the back? So that time frame, 3:59? I mean, she could have passed
At
him.
approximately 4:13 a.m.
But she could be the type that just like sits in her car for a minute trying to find the next one or smoking or doing whatever she's doing in her car. She seriously could have sat back there for a minute and he could have parked right next to her. Cuz think about it. If she parked back there, guys, that would be a place where you're not like in the driveway. So that'd be a place if you need to like find something or do something or just chill in the car, find your next delivery or call somebody, text them. Like that'd be a
At
spot you
approximately
just chill
4:13
for a
a.m.,
minute, right? That's crazy. But the only thing that I don't understand is why didn't they mention they could have just said, oh, another witness seen him or parked next to him. They wouldn't have had to say who or what her name was if they wanted to keep her anonymous. But you would think when they did the whole breakdown of what they would have presented, you think they would have added it. Unless if they felt no need to like exposing her because it's already, oh, they don't need to now. They've kept it secret this whole time. They don't need to do it now. So why add it? Maybe. I don't know. I'm still a little bit, I'm leaning more towards that she probably didn't park next to him. But I think there's a good possibility she saw him. Maybe she's seen him passing him or seen him parked or you know what I'm saying? But I still think there's a chance she could have parked for a quick I don't know, guys. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think we're ever gonna know now. Okay, let's watch part 2 though. So that was part 1. Oh, she does Karen Reed too, guys. I watched all her stuff because what drew me to this is because I was trying to figure out the whole DoorDash thing and her video popped up because one of them's like something about DoorDash. Okay, let's watch part 2 of the Idaho murders.
Hi guys, this is part 2. Since Bryan Kohberger pled guilty today, I feel I can release this full illustration of the Idaho 4 crimes movements. It's put together by evidence given to me by media companies like Netflix and others, including more recently, Dateline, who hired me to do their 3D modeling for their project. I'm going to include a lot of information in this 2-part series where you can see exactly what took place.
Wait, why can't I go full screen like I did on the other one? Hold on a second. It was up here.
From moment to moment. Let's continue with part 2.
Oh well.
Hi guys, since Bryan Kohberger pled guilty today, I feel I can release this full illustration of the Idaho 4 crimes, showing Kohberger's movement.
Sorry.
Hi guys, this is part 2. Since Bryan Kohberger pled guilty today, I feel I can release this full illustration of the Idaho 4 crimes, showing Kohberger's movements. It's put together by evidence given to me by media companies like Netflix and others, including more recently, Dateline, who hired me to do their 3D modeling for their project. I'm going to include a lot of information in this 2-part series where you can see exactly what took place from moment to moment. Let's continue with part 2. Picking up where we left off. A source revealed that Santa's phone recorded steps and elevation change, which is how it's known she went to the kitchen and the 3rd floor. When she walked up to Maddie's doorway, she interrupted Kohberger, who had just finished an intense battle with Kaylee, who fought back violently. After a second or two, he notices her, and then she turns away. Being dark, Xana didn't realize what she was seeing other than a shadowy figure. Out of fear, she quickly leaves. A single source, unaffiliated with the media, claims Kohberger injured Xana on the 3rd floor hallway, leaving evidence of blood there. But this single source of information has not been validated by any more sources. Continuing, Kohberger, without thinking, pursues her all the way to her room, not realizing he had dropped the sheath of his knife. When he gets to the room, he attacks Xana, and the time is precisely 4:17:30. We know this because of camera A captured the sound of screaming and the thud. After attacking Xana, Kohberger...
Can I rewind it really quick? Hold on. I want to rewind it. Hold on. I missed this part. Hold on.
Being dark, Xana didn't realize what she was seeing other than a shadowy figure.
So she has it laid out like Xana comes up there too. Hold on. Let me rewind it a little bit. I got to watch that part again because I was just reading chat and I want to watch it.
Let's continue with part 2.
All right.
Picking up where we left off. A source revealed that Xana's phone recorded steps and elevation change, which is how it's known she went to the kitchen and the 3rd floor. When she walked up to Maddie's doorway, she interrupted Kohberger, who had just finished an intense battle with Kaylee, who fought back violently. After a second or two, he notices her, and then she turns away. Being dark, Xana didn't realize what she was seeing other than a shadowy figure. Out of fear, she quickly leaves. A single source, unaffiliated with the media, claims Kohberger injured Xana on the 3rd floor hallway, leaving evidence of blood there. But the single source of information has not been validated by any more sources. Continuing, Kohberger, without thinking, pursues her all the way to her room, not realizing he had dropped the sheath of his knife. When he gets to the room, he attacks Xana, and the time is precisely 4:17:30. We know this because of camera A captured the sound of screaming and the thud. After attacking Xana, Kohberger focuses his attention on Ethan and attacks him while he slept. Afterwards, Kohberger must have sat down in a chair according to a report, which found blood smears on Xana's chair, perhaps from the exhaustion of what he had just done. This source also says that blood from the 2 roommates upstairs were found in Xana's room, showing that it was one person moving from one room to another. Kohberger sitting down was for less than 30 seconds. As he gets up to leave, Dylan, hearing the commotion from Xana's room, gets up out of bed and goes to her door to look out into the hallway. She freezes and sees Kohberger as he walks by and exits through the kitchen. She immediately closes and locks her door and retreats to her bed. Within 20 seconds of the encounter, she's calling and texting her roommates, but no one is responding. It takes Kohberger a minute and a half to get to his vehicle after the encounter with Dylan. But once in his car, he flees the scene at a high rate of speed and exits the neighborhood at 4:20. Dylan continues trying to reach someone in the house. And after 3 minutes of trying, Bethany wakes up in response to the calls. They converse for 3 minutes, and then Beth convinces Dylan to come downstairs. The time is now 4:26 a.m. Cautiously, Dylan walks into the hallway and through the living room. As she approaches the staircase, she can see into Xana's room and sees her laying on the floor. She then runs quickly downstairs to Beth's room, where they lock the door and for several hours continuously try contacting the other roommates. Back to when Kohberger left the neighborhood, he drove a particular route that would exit onto a road that leads straight to Washington state line. And about that same time that Dylan runs to Beth's room, Kohberger is entering Washington state. This is all part of Kohberger's pre-planning, including finding a place to stop and get rid of any evidence. This place here fits that planning. This area here, pointed out by the arrow, is a little group of trees with a small area that you can park a car on. This is what it looks like from the road. At 4:30 in the morning, while changing clothes and getting cleaned up at this location, one could feel completely safe while being able to see the headlights of a car coming from miles away. As this pivots around, you can see how this is out in the middle of nowhere, and a pre-dug hole near some of these trees would hide forever any evidence that Kohberger was trying to get rid of. It's important to remember that Kohberger was studying criminal behavior and the legal system. This would have motivated him to plan things to the smallest of details, like plastic on the seats to conceal DNA, or crossing state lines because the jurisdiction of one area would take hours to get assistance from the other. He's also smart enough to know that this 10-minute stop would likely never be on the radar of the authorities, especially after he crosses back into Idaho and then turns his phone back on. Let's pick back up where we left off at his 10-minute stop. He continues on with his plan, knowing that he's completely cleaned up and that there's no evidence to tie him to any of the crime if he were pulled over at this point. After getting on Highway 95 and turning south, he turns his phone back on at 4:48 a.m. This section of Kohberger's travels comes from his cell phone data extraction. Let's orientate ourselves onto this map and get a better understanding of the timing. Kohberger leaves Kings Road residence at 4:21 a.m. Just 8 minutes later, he arrives at his stopping point where he gets rid of all the evidence. After the cleanup, he then drives back into Idaho and turns his phone back on, which occurs near a town named Blaine. This was referenced in the arrest affidavit along with the next town called Uniontown. The last place to reference is where he's seen on cameras near his apartment at 5:25 a.m. Using Google tools, we can get accurate timing information. This entire route took 54 minutes. If we add the 10 minutes stopping time to that, it would be an hour and 4 minutes. Now, if you add that hour and 4 minutes to the time he left King Road, it would equal 5:25 a.m., the same time the camera captures him on the cameras near Washington State University. The last thing to compare is this part of the route, which has a reported time of 38 minutes to drive without any stopping. Bringing back the time record and adding in the second leg information of 38 minutes, we can now add that time to when he turned his phone back on, which was at 4:48 a.m. After adding the 38 minutes to that time, it gives us 5:26 a.m., nearly the same time that was captured on the campus cameras. Hey everyone, I don't usually ask, but I'm building a small production company to bring you more exciting stories, and I'd love your support. Hi guys.
Sorry, I'm on mute. That's two things. So she that came from a single source. So I didn't even think about that. Remember Dateline? That came out on Dateline for the first time where they said that they thought Xana went upstairs, caught Bryan, like seen Bryan up there and then came running back down. And we were all like, where did that information come from? Like nobody, what? Duh, I didn't even think about that. So the flight, they thought that because she works for Dateline, so she knows what they know. I mean, she said she works for them and gives them, these maps and helps them. So she probably does know. So she said the flight, because there was a flight of stairs that they went up. Unless if they said it on that Dateline episode, I didn't catch it, but how they knew because it tracked a flight of stairs on her phone or whatever. So they think she went up there. And then what'd she say? There was like blood outside her door. So she thinks that he attacked her. He started attacking her before she got to her room. That's interesting. Okay. Wow. What? Oh, I thought she said. I was thinking she said a single source, like a source. Maybe I misunderstood. I thought she was saying like a source told him. But maybe I misunderstood. Was she talking about single source DNA? I thought she was just talking about her source. Because we know Dateline said a source. Also, we know that Ashley Banfield, like a year or so ago, had a source, remember, that she said that Ethan maybe was outside the room, which we know that's wrong, but maybe they got it mixed up. The source got it mixed up and there was blood outside the room, which thought that they got attacked outside the room. But remember, their source, she thought it meant Ashley Banfield, like last year, thought it meant that maybe Ethan was attacked outside the room. So it was kind of close if that's going to be what really happened. Anyway, so that was were good. But yeah, sure, it's Azget, guys. Okay, so you guys want to watch that one documentary? I'm trying to see, there's 2 more articles. I want to see if there's really anything interesting in them. If I should read those. She was found under one of the victims. Yeah, maybe she meant single source DNA, I guess. Because why would she say single source for a single source? I was thinking she meant her source, but it was probably the DNA she was talking about when she said single source. But they obviously have some source that's telling them, first of all, that released that, whatever they released, that surveillance they weren't supposed to release. And then we didn't know about her Xana showing a flight of stairs. Now, sometimes their sources aren't accurate. We've seen people's news reporters' sources be wrong. The Delphi case had some wrong things. This case, early on, that source had some wrong things about Ethan. that one about Ethan being outside the door or whatever. So it's not always right, but hopefully we'll learn. Hopefully we'll at least the non-dissemination will be lifted and we can learn some of this stuff. Okay, so let me just see what this is real quick before I play that, because the documentary will be the last thing I play and then it'll be the end of it. But it's 42 minutes and it looks like it's gonna be pretty good, guys. Okay. I just want to make sure. How long? Hold on. I want to see something. How long were those each? I want to make sure that 6 and then yeah, that's the whole thing. Okay. Because there's one where it's all together. And it was 12 minutes. So I wanted to make sure I got the whole thing. But yeah, it's the whole thing. Okay. Because they're each 6 minutes. Hold on, I'm just making sure that I didn't miss any of her videos. Nope, it's just those two for the Kohberger case. Okay. Just on YouTube, they're combined. Oh, let's do this one. That's what I wanted to do. We got to read this one first and then I'll play the documentary. Okay. So this is Kohberger's motive. Idaho, what was Bryan Kohberger's motive? Expert shares chilling theory on rage that he built. Ooh, let's see if this is any good, guys. A forensic psychiatrist has provided a theory behind Idaho murder suspect Bryan Kohberger's motive after he pleaded guilty to 4 counts of murder. Idaho murder suspect Bryan has finally admitted to killing the Idaho students, but one burning question remains. What was his motive? A forensic psychiatrist has provided a theory behind the killer's motive after he pleaded guilty to 4 counts of murder, a deal that will help him dodge the death penalty. Kohberger brutally stabbed Ethan Chapin, Xana Coronado, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Goncalves to death in the early morning hours of November 13, 2022, at a rental home near their campus in Moscow. Forensic psychiatrist Dr. Carol Lieberman told the Daily Mail that Kohberger's anger may have been triggered by a psychological pattern. It is especially significant that Maddie and Kaylee look like the blonde cheerleader who rejected him in middle school, Lieberman said. He took out the rage that he built up over the years towards this first love and all the subsequent women who rejected him, with each bloody stab of the knife. Lieberman also delved deep into Kohberger's demeanor during the plea agreement. He was so angry, so defiant, Lieberman said. He certainly wasn't remorseful, no. The expert said that she is now going to share her theory to help the victims' families. They are not going to hear it from his mouth. So I just wanted to try to give them some idea of why this happened, she added. Their children didn't do anything wrong, and what happened is not because of anything their children did. I'm worried that they are thinking that. Is there more, or is that it? Just about the women and the cheerleaders? See, I don't know if I mean, I think he wanted to do it for his own reasons, but it's the fact of like who he had to pick the people, the victims. So those, I think he just had an encounter probably with one of them, and you know what I'm saying? And then, but I don't think it was like, oh, they did something, so I want to kill him. It was like he wanted to kill somebody, perfect crime. He wanted to see how it felt and whatever his sick reasons were, but he just had to pick who. So I think, yeah, Jocelyn, I think there's a good chance that maybe he went into that because it was a vegetarian. Was it a vegan? Because he's either, I don't know if he's vegan, vegetarian, Bryan. So there's a good chance that he probably did go into that restaurant and eat and saw them, and maybe they were his waitress or whatever. I'll have to find that article for you, Jocelyn. I'll do it when I play that video. It'll give me time. Okay, so one more. What's this? So they're talking about Thompson and the motive or whatever. So it's saying about how they can't connect him. The Thompson said he cannot say what Kohberger did during that time if he had contact with any of the 4 victims breaking into the house. Rather, the prosecutor said his office could not connect Kohberger to the victims and therefore did not offer a theory on the motive for the quadruple murder. Talking about the ping 23 times between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. That's the 23 times. That's the time frame where it always pinged. Says, but we can't put his phone in the area. The prosecutor said that they would not represent Kohberger. State would not represent that Kohberger intended to commit all of the murders that he did that night, but we know that that is what resulted. Okay, no sexual assault. I think this is basically just saying what he read. The prosecutor read what they would have proven or whatever. So I'm not going to read all that again. Because it's basically what we already know. We want to know the detail. We want to know more stuff, which hopefully the non-dissemination order will be lifted. Eventually, it's going to. I don't know how long it'll take after sentencing, and it has to. But I don't know how much they'll consider public, where they'll have to release some stuff, but they might not release a lot. I don't know. Well, let's see. This goes a little bit about their lives here. Goncalves and Mogan, the night before, they were at a nearby sports bar. Oh, we know that. Okay, hold on. Goncalves was a senior majoring in general studies at the College of Letters, Arts, and Social Sciences. She was expected to graduate in December before heading to Austin, Texas for a job marketing firm. Her friend Jordan Quasnell told the New York Times. Mogan, who was studying marketing, was best friends with Kaylee since 6th grade. She had plans to move to Boise after graduation, family friend Jesse Frost shared with the Idaho Statesman. Coronado was a junior majoring in marketing, the university said at that time. She and Chapin, who majored in recreation, sport, and tourism management, had been dating since the spring. The roommate's neighbor, Ellie McKnight, told NBC News. 2 roommates, Dylan and Bethany, had been home at the time of the murders. In text messages that were unsealed, Dylan and Bethany tried contacting their roommates on November 13th after they saw the masked man moving through the house. Okay, I'm not going to go over all the stuff that we already went over. Over 1 month after the bodies were discovered, Kohberger was taken into custody. Okay, we know all that. Yeah, this is just all repeat. Okay. What was his initial defense? At the moment, a motive for the attack has not been detailed, and a gag order prevents many involved in the case from speaking publicly. However, the unsealed documents provided some insight into their initial arguments. Kohberger's attorneys argued in a motion obtained by E! News to strike the death penalty that Kohberger, who initially faced death penalty if found guilty on all accounts, has autism spectrum disorder, and that executing him would violate the 8th Amendment's prohibition on cruel and unusual punishment. His defense argued that Kohberger displays extremely rigid thinking, perseverates, I don't know, on specific topics, process information on, okay, I'm going to skip some of this. All right. Kohberger has waived his speedy trial. Ada County Judge Stephen denied the defense request to suppress DNA, cell phone, email records, surveillance footage, past Amazon purchases, DNA evidence in the trial. Oh, yeah. I mean, why? Okay. Abruptly canceled. Okay. There's nothing new in this. Oh, selfie after the murders. A selfie Kohberger took the morning after the murders took place was introduced to March 2025. Photograph which sees him in the front of the shower. Thumbs up displays how he may fit the description witnessed. Identified as DM, Gavin Filans, who said bushy eyebrows. Okay, that was a waste. Just all the same stuff. Okay, let's watch this show. Sorry, guys. I thought maybe it would have something new in it, but never. It's like a bunch of repeats. Okay, so here's this. It's called The Whole Story. Never seen it. Put a 1 if you've seen it and a 2 if not, and let's watch it. Should be good. Okay. Let me make sure the volume's all the way up. All right, here we go. Okay, we got to skip through music because
4 University of Idaho students were brutally stabbed to death in their off-campus home. 2 other roommates who were in the house at the time of the crime were unharmed, though one of them spotted a strange figure dressed in black walking out the door. In the weeks that followed, law enforcement narrowed in on a suspect, this man, Bryan Kohberger, a PhD student of criminology who had no apparent connection to the victims. He was arrested and charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder. He pleaded not guilty, and the trial was set to begin in August. But just this week, he reversed his plea and admitted to the crimes, avoiding the possibility of the death penalty. He'll be sentenced later this month. Over the next hour, CNN's chief law enforcement analyst John Miller lays out how authorities traced the murders to Kohberger and looks at the biggest unanswered question in this case. Why did he do it?
There's a manhunt underway as a college town in Idaho is on edge this morning.
Potential killer on the loose is terrifying.
Police are saying they cannot guarantee anyone's safety.
Whoever went to that house came there deliberately, it appears with the intent to kill everyone inside.
When I first heard of the Idaho murders, 4 students in a rented house, a small college town, as someone who spent years in law enforcement going to homicide scenes, you go down a list of questions. The excessive violence, does it indicate passion, hate, or anger? Was the killer close to them? Or a random stranger who is fed by the violence? And of course, if they're still out there, will they strike again?
sorry. Accidentally. Shoot, I accidentally unshared my. I hit the wrong freaking button. They both are unshare, and I was just trying to unshare my camera for a minute. Okay, sorry. I got it back. All right, I'll rewind it a little bit. All right, here we go.
Of course, if they're still out there, will they strike again? It was Saturday, November 12th, 2022. It was the last home game for the Vandals, the University of Idaho football team.
Game day in Moscow is exciting. You can feel it in the air, like the energy.
Senior Kaylee Goncalves posted a picture on Instagram with 4 former roommates and one of their boyfriends with the caption, "One lucky girl to be surrounded by these people every day."
I know that they were just kind of probably tailgating and stuff that Saturday.
It's a lot of revelry, and as with many college communities, a lot of drinking and partying.
That night, Xana Kernodle, who lived at the home at 1122 King Road, and her boyfriend, Ethan Chapin, went to a party at his fraternity, Sigma Chi. Kaylee, who had recently moved out of the home but was back for a visit, headed downtown to the Corner Club with Maddie Mogan, Xana's roommate.
The Corner Club's like the place that everyone goes to hang out and stuff. It's like the college bar. We would probably make it to the Corner Club at least once a weekend.
They study hard during the week, and so they were just doing the normal college kid thing and having a few drinks. There was nothing out of the ordinary.
Around 1:30 a.m., Kaylee and Maddie left the bar and walked to a food truck down the street.
Hi.
Welcome back. You can see them buying a bowl of macaroni, late night eats, and then they ultimately hopped into a car service that got them home.
By 2 a.m., Xana, Ethan, and 2 other roommates also returned to the girls' rental house.
Xana Kernodle ordered DoorDash. She got Jack in the Box, and this was delivered at 3:59 a.m.
Then, one of the roommates, Dylan Mortensen, woke to what she said sounded like Kaylee playing with her dog upstairs, and she heard something odd.
She thought she heard Kaylee say, "Someone's here." And then she heard what sounded like crying coming from Xana's room, and a voice saying, "It's okay, I'm here to help you."
Dylan opened her door to see what was going on.
After opening the door a 3rd time, because she had come out several times, she saw an individual she described, I believe, about 5'10", athletic build, wearing all black, a black hat and face mask. So the only thing she could see were bushy eyebrows as the person walked toward her and then exited the house through the sliding glass door.
She stood frozen, in shock, and locked herself in her room. Only one of the girls, Bethany Funk, whose bedroom was on the 1st floor, answered her texts.
They were frantic, trying to figure out what was going on. They were calling their roommates and also Ethan Chapin, who stayed over for the night, but none of them answered. The 1st floor roommate invited her to come down. She did say, "Well, run, come down now." The 2nd floor roommate did come out of her room and did race down the stairs where they slept for the evening. They woke about 10:30 the next day, also tried to reach some of their roommates to no success.
Around 8 hours after Dylan saw a strange man leaving their home, a 911 call was made.
911 location of your emergency.
Hi, something is happening. Something's happening in our house. We don't know what.
What is the address of the emergency? I need to know what's going on right now.
She's not well. What's wrong? She's not waking up.
Maddie's father, Ben Mogan, was at the movies when he received a text from her mom, Karen.
She said to call her, and the movie was almost over, so I was going to just call her when I got out. And then my mom texted me too and said that you need to come home. And so I knew something was wrong. I rushed to my mom's house, and they were just crying.
Maddie Mogan, Kaylee Goncalves, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin had been stabbed to death. Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk were unharmed.
I got the vandal alert that came out to everyone that said there was a homicide on King Street. So I texted Kaylee and I was like, "Hey, is everything okay? Please let me know ASAP. I love you." One of my other friends called me and she was like hyperventilating and my stomach just dropped. I dropped to my knees and I don't think I said a word.
Moscow police had never seen anything like it.
Police did acknowledge, and as did the coroner, that it was a pretty gruesome scene.
There were 4 dead college students who were stabbed to death all in one location. There were stab wounds on the hands of at least one of the students that make it appear that it would be defensive wounds.
I worked in law enforcement for nearly 20 years, and it is rare to see a murder this violent with no apparent motive.
They were not familiar with a crime of this magnitude. 4 deaths, again, historically in Idaho, it's unheard of. They really had their work cut out for them. They showed up and there were students outside, they were aware of what was going on. Police had to show up and figure it all out.
With the killer at large, the university canceled classes and urged students to shelter in place.
I think it was just so unreal. Like that whole day for everyone was just something that it's just so unimaginable.
This is a community that's peaceful and tranquil, and place where you feel safe. You don't lock your doors. You don't even lock your car door. Now people really had to second guess where they were going at night. The university started offering escorts in the evening. So people were going to class and going home and closing their shutters and locking their door.
Coming up, investigators obtained the cell phone records of a potential suspect.
These 12 pings that show that Bryan Kohberger was in the area of 1122 King Road are so important.
My name is Chief James Fry with the Moscow Police Department. We know you have questions, and so do we. That is why we're here.
It's been 3 days since the horrific murders of the 4 students in Moscow, Idaho, and the community was shaken to its core. Conflicting information coming from police only added to the fear.
We believe this was an isolated, targeted attack on our victims.
You guys have said repeatedly that there's no threat to the public, but we don't know who the suspect is. We don't know where he's at. How is there no threat to the public at this point?
Well, that's kind of an unknown. Like I said, we took the information that we had at the time, but we do need to be aware. The individual is still out there, right? We need to be vigilant.
When the chief initially said there's no need for concern in the community, that to me caused a lot of confusion and distrust of what was really happening.
The reality is, I probably should have been standing here a day or so ago, but I'm here now.
Public officials, elected officials, whether it was the mayor or the police chief or the prosecutor, I mean, they kind of spent days spinning their wheels saying one thing and having to go to backtrack and then reconfirm and then unconfirm. And I'm not sure the community had a lot of confidence that this smaller police department is really ever going to get to the bottom of this.
It's so difficult in a case like this when it comes to communicating with the media because of all the things you have to do to try to get the perpetrator identified and arrested. As far as the nuts and bolts of the investigation and what they were achieving, this chief didn't have a big ego and say, we'll just handle it ourselves. Instead, he got 60 FBI agents that were full-time assigned to this. That is almost unheard of, unprecedented.
The police chief called this a targeted attack. So, did that mean the killer knew the victims?
I was initially thinking this is somebody who had a passionate rage of anger towards someone in that house. And once you start to pare down that the inner circle was not involved, that's when it gets interesting. That is not going to be easy to identify because they probably had a very loose connection with the victims.
By November 20th, 7 days after the murders, Chief Fry said investigators had fielded 646 tips and conducted more than 90 interviews.
I talked to the police 2 days after, I think. It was that Monday they called me. And then the FBI came to my house. They were just trying to get a sense of who Kaylee was. Tell me about Kaylee. Tell me about your relationship with Kaylee. Tell me about what you know with Kaylee's other relationships. A couple of my friends, like my good friends and Kaylee's friends, were at the corner club with her that night. They were all like, yeah, we hung out with her, we saw her, but like nothing was weird, nothing was off.
Less than 2 weeks after the murders, law enforcement was on to a strong lead.
The white car that we've been interested in, we believe that that car was in the area during the time of the murders. And we also believe that the occupant or occupants may have seen something.
Surveillance videos obtained by police from the King Road neighborhood showed multiple sightings of a white Hyundai Elantra passing through the area on the night of the murders, starting at 3:29 a.m. and ending at 4:20 a.m. when the car left at a high rate of speed. Authorities found that a car of that description was registered in nearby Pullman, Washington.
The Washington State University Police, one of them searched their database for permits issued for student parking and landed on Bryan Kohberger's vehicle.
Bryan Kohberger, a 28-year-old PhD student studying criminology at Washington State University, about 9 miles away from Moscow, Idaho. Remember, one of the surviving roommates told police the man she saw in her home that night had bushy eyebrows. So does Bryan Kohberger.
It was interesting and significant that before anyone identified this particular human being, that the characteristics that she described, bushy eyebrows, slender build, were entirely consistent with the gentleman who was ultimately identified as the likely criminal here.
On December 19th, the FBI also identified Kohberger as someone to look at.
A knife sheath was found underneath partly Madison Mogen's body and partly under the covers of her bed where she died. And they retrieved that during the investigation, and through lab work were able to discover that there was a single strain of male DNA on the knife sheath.
The FBI uploaded the DNA to public genealogy websites, and the data they recovered pointed them towards Kohberger's family tree. Days later, Idaho investigators pulled Kohberger's cell data, which showed his phone hit cell towers near the King Road residence on at least 12 occasions prior to the night of the murders. All but one instance in the late evening or early morning hours.
It puts him in the area. It's another piece of the puzzle.
According to police, cell phone records also showed Kohberger's phone left his apartment the night of the murders at 2:42 a.m. and then stopped connecting to the network or was turned off. And it stayed off during the time of the murders.
We know Bryan Kohberger's phone was turned off for approximately 2 hours, a little before the murders and just around 30 minutes after the murders. We see this happen often. You think that if you turn your phone off during a crime, it's not going to give any information. And that's true, but just turning it off gives people a lot of information. Why did they turn it off at that exact time when they don't ever turn it off for 2 hours at 4 in the morning?
But police could not share everything they knew about the suspect with the media, the public, or even the victims' families. Some of the families grew frustrated, as Kaylee Goncalves' mother, Christy, told NBC's Today Show.
It's sleepless nights. It's feeling sick to your stomach. It's just being left in the dark.
The pressure intensified as reporters flooded into Moscow.
It's clearly drawn such a national interest, international really. We had reporters from all over, including the UK and many other places, who were coming to Moscow, this tiny little dot on the map.
Well, as citizens, we want that information. We want to know what's going on. We want to be assured and made to feel like they're doing a good job, but they can't because they have the integrity of their investigation to protect.
I want to let everybody know that we are still 100% committed to solving this crime. We're not releasing specific details because we do not want to compromise this investigation. We want more than just an arrest. We want a conviction. We owe that justice to Xana, Kaylee, Madison, and Ethan.
Saying they had a suspect, even if they didn't name him, could have taken a lot of pressure off the police. But at that point, with Kohberger in their sights, their biggest enemy was a leak.
I knew that the case was taking longer than people thought it should, but I just knew that they were doing everything for a reason, and that if they were taken their time with it, then it was for a good reason, and that it was all going to work out in the end.
Coming up,
we obtained information through some of our interviews that Kaylee had made some comments about a stalker.
police narrow in on their lead suspect.
When you're putting trash in a neighbor's trash bin, there's a clear implication that you're trying to conceal something.
On Thursday, December 15th, a little more than a month since the murders, Bryan Kohberger was driving his white Hyundai Elantra across country to his parents' home in Pennsylvania. His father had flown out to Washington State to ride with him.
He was pulled over twice in Indiana along a stretch of I-70, just outside of Indianapolis.
Is this your car? Okay, cool. Where are you headed?
Well, we're coming from WSU.
He was pulled over first by a sheriff's deputy for following too closely, and then about 10 minutes later, he's pulled over yet again by an Indiana state trooper, also for following too closely.
Well, I'm not going to give you guys another ticket or warning if you just got stopped.
It turns out those were kind of routine drug interdiction stops.
No drugs were found. Interestingly, Kohberger chose an unusual route for the trip.
It's about 2,500 miles cross country, and according to a license plate ping on the border of Utah and Colorado, they identified his license plate. So he went pretty far south through Idaho and down to Utah and then through Colorado in what wouldn't necessarily be the quickest way. So it was, I think, about 4 hours or 5 hours out of your way and about another 500 miles. We don't know why.
Investigators were working around the clock to narrow in on Kohberger and to look for the connection between him and the victims.
Police have never said what a potential connection might be. There's a lot of rumors that have gone out, things like social media, but we still to this day don't know.
Early in the investigation, Moscow police confirmed they were looking into reports that Kaylee had a stalker.
We obtained information through some of our interviews that Kaylee had made some comments about a stalker, so that's where that came from. We have followed up looking at specific time frames in specific areas of town. So far, we have not been able to corroborate it, but we're not done looking into that piece of information.
Police looked at this surveillance video of Maddie and Kaylee walking to the grub truck the night they were killed. But the person they're talking about has been cleared by police, Kaylee's father told Fox News.
It's just two girls having a good time talking about, asking about their bartender and just being girls on their way to the grub truck. It was pretty clear that this individual was not a part of the investigation as far as a suspect.
Jordan Cannell says Kaylee never mentioned a stalker.
As far as I know, there was no concern of a stalker or someone being creepy on social media or anything like that.
Maddie never said anything about a stalker or anything, but I don't think she would have told me something like that because I would have probably overreacted. To my knowledge, none of her friends or anyone was aware of this guy being someone that they had to worry about.
But investigators were worried about Kohberger. Now at his parents' home in Pennsylvania, authorities began watching him 24/7.
In a case like this, once law enforcement develops a subject, it's very important to surveil them. Why? Number one, safety. If you truly believe that this individual could have committed this crime, you better know where they're at and what they're doing. Secondarily, you want to see if they're doing anything to cover up the crime. If they maybe go back to the murder weapon, which we know still hasn't been found.
Also, police wanted to obtain something with Kohberger's DNA to see if it matched the sample on the knife sheath left at the crime scene.
We know that they obtained the family's garbage at some point and sent that out for testing.
Police saw Kohberger multiple times outside his family's home, wearing surgical gloves, cleaning his car, and at one point, around 4 a.m., putting trash into the neighbors' garbage bins.
Could there be a logical explanation for this, right? He's just detailing his car, has what appear to be historically odd mannerisms. And so that's just Bryan being Bryan. But again, when you're putting trash in a neighbor's trash bin, there's a clear implication that you're trying to conceal something, right?
On December 28th, the Idaho State Crime Lab reported DNA taken from Kohberger's trash was believed to belong to the biological father of the suspect DNA profile found on the knife sheath. The next day, Ben Mogan got a phone call.
They told me that they had it figured out finally. I couldn't tell anybody or tell my family even, and I had to keep it to myself that night. And that was the hardest thing I think I've done through this whole thing, was to not be able to tell my family that it was finally over.
On Friday, December 30th, 7 weeks after the brutal murders, the Pennsylvania State Police SWAT team moved in on the Kohberger family home around 1:30 in the morning.
When you're dealing with somebody that is being accused of a crime that is extremely violent, they want to make sure they had speed and surprise to come upon this individual without detection.
Last night, in conjunction with the Pennsylvania State Police, Federal Bureau of Investigation, detectives arrested 28-year-old Bryan Christopher Kohberger in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, on a warrant for murders of Ethan, Zana, Madison, and Kaylee.
The day that the arrest was made was the same day that we were having our service for Maddie and Kaylee. And so it was just the best timing we could have asked for. It was such a relief. I mean, my whole family was just, and all the families were just so happy that it was over. As happy as you can get, at least.
And it was also a moment of redemption for Moscow police.
I recognize the frustration with the lack of information that's been released. However, providing any details in this criminal investigation might have tainted the upcoming criminal prosecution or alerted the suspect of our progress.
They kept a lot of information close to the vest. They'll tell you today that that's ultimately what won the day.
When people are waiting on pins and needles for an answer, and these families are grief-stricken, understandably, every minute is torture. But with this magnitude of a crime, to be thorough in the investigation was something that had to be done.
With Kohberger now under arrest and extradited to Idaho, officials obtained a DNA sample directly from him, which they say matched the DNA found on the knife sheath.
This shows an octillion degree of probability that this is no one else's DNA.
That is the icing on the cake, so to speak. There's nothing that I've seen that would put that DNA where it was in the house without it being linked to the crime.
Coming up.
There were challenges arising with the professor he worked under. Washington State University made the decision to terminate him.
When was the first time you heard about these murders in Idaho?
So I heard about them January. I was like, oh my God, that's Bryan. That was a shock. I was like, holy crap, that's Bryan.
Jack Bayless has known Bryan Kohberger since they were in middle school. I had to stop and think, like, how could that be Bryan? Did I see this coming? Did I miss something?
Yeah, nothing really caught my attention. You know, there's no red flags as far as I know. He wasn't like killing, like, you know, neighborhood cats or anything like that.
Bayless's cousin introduced him to Kohberger, and the boys grew up playing together in the Pocono Mountains in Pennsylvania.
What did you guys used to do? We'd go hang around, walk around the neighborhood. We'd go looking for snakes or whatever, or go back to my cousin's house and play some video games. And if I could describe Bryan, especially in the later years, was pretty average, normal guy, which is, scary to think about. If you did do these murders, he's just a normal guy.
But Bayless does remember Kohberger changed during high school.
Yeah, he lost a lot of weight.
Did you see it?
Oh yeah, the time I saw him, there's a big shift. I saw him he was overweight, and the next time I saw him, he's not overweight.
Kohberger, who was always known as a heavy-set kid, had a drastic weight loss. One friend I spoke to told me that he estimated that Bryan had probably weighed about 300 pounds, through middle school and early high school. You can see it in the yearbook photos, this transformation that he makes.
The transformation wasn't just physical. Bayless says Kohberger seemed depressed and started using drugs.
If I was a betting man, I'd say the drugs were an escape from that depression. There's a message between us from forever ago where he said, I've been depressed since I was 5, so depression definitely came first. And then when he got into heroin, he kind of swapped the friend group.
I want to rewind that and read what it says. Hold on a second. Okay. It says, what is depression? One word responses don't explain, but I feel you. I don't expect you to open up about it. It says, it's just what it is. It's a disease like any other. Just got to live with it. So he's saying that Bryan is the one that says that depressed since he was 5, right? So Bryan's the great one. Okay. I've been depressed since I was 5, I would say. I don't know if you relate, but I hope you feel more interested in life soon. It comes and goes, really. It's hard to explain. And then let me make sure I'm understanding which one's which. Hold on, I'm going to rewind it a minute. Because I thought he said this was Bryan, but I just want to make sure. Would that be right? Hold on, let me see.
Drugs. If I was a betting man, I'd say the drugs were an escape from that depression. There's a message between us from forever ago where he said, I've been depressed since I was 5, so depression definitely came first. And then when he got into heroin.
Okay, so yeah, he's saying that is Bryan saying that. I don't know why I was thinking it was the other way around. Okay. So he says, I've been depressed since I was 5. I would say, I don't know if you relate, but I hope you feel more interested in life soon. It comes and goes, really. It's hard to explain. And then that guy says, might be more of a bipolar thing. It's all based on chemicals and how your brain deals with them overall. And Bryan says, not at all, LOL. Oh, maybe he's answering to the bipolar. More interested in it. But I hope you feel like it comes and goes. It's really hard. One word responses don't explain, but I feel you. I don't expect you to open up about it. Huh, interesting.
Forever ago where he said, I've been depressed since I was 5, so depression definitely came first. And then when he got into heroin, he kind of swapped friend groups basically. And that was probably late high school, early college when that happened. And that's when he kind of lost contact with him.
Bayless wasn't the only friend Kohberger lost.
One of his friends had told me they were both sort of like awkward high school kids, like many of us were. And over time, as Bryan gained confidence, he became kind of the alpha between the two and was constantly trying to wrestle him, or he'd play mind games with him that he didn't like, and he just didn't know how to stop. And ultimately that friend walked away.
Bryan Kohberger.
Kohberger eventually got his life on track, earning undergraduate and master's degrees from DeSales University.
Got a bachelor's degree also in psychology, and then stayed on at DeSales for an online master's degree in criminal justice.
Kohberger then moved to Washington State University in the summer of 2022 to study for his PhD in criminology, while also working as a teaching assistant. Kevin Fixler says Kohberger's peers recalled him as actively engaged, but without sharing much about his past.
Bryan, they said, was not somebody who was afraid to share his opinions. He was somebody who spoke up. And I recall one student in particular, a colleague, said that he wanted to come off as smart. He wanted to seem like, he knew what he was talking about. Another student told me that he was not shy about, his views either about women or about members of the LGBTQ plus community. He had said that, any woman in here with relation to whether they were at a bar drinking or whatever I could have.
Bayless remembers Kohberger struggled in relationships with women.
What I remember the general gist of it'd be, just frustrating, getting ghosted a lot. We'd vent to each other about that stuff. 'Cause it's frustrating.
Kohberger's classmates at WSU said they noticed a change in his behavior in late November, right after the 4 students at the University of Idaho were found murdered.
Kohberger was outspoken except for when the Moscow homicides came up. I guess it was during the course of a conversation in class, which, that would be a natural conversation for a criminology course. People remembered after the fact in hindsight that he had gone quiet. And that was surprising, given his nature and his history in the coursework.
Students in one of the 3 undergraduate classes Kohberger taught recalled seeing a shift in how he graded students around the same time.
He was pretty strict as far as grading goes. When he would grade your papers, he would be grading you on what he ended up calling like a higher standard. But what it really felt like to us was he was grading us like he would have graded himself as a PhD student. And so that was just kind of like, we were all annoyed by him. It would have been about a month before winter break when like the murders happened. Around then, he started grading everybody just 100s.
According to the New York Times, Kohberger was fired from his job as a teaching assistant.
There were challenges arising in his TA-ship with the professor for whom he worked under. On December 19th, Washington State University professors met, had a discussion, and ultimately made the decision to terminate him from that role.
Just weeks after he was fired, Kohberger was charged with the murders of Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, and Ethan.
If he did do it, I want him, in jail. It's a heinous crime, and whoever did it should be in prison, at the very least.
It's a shocking crime on any level.
It's abhorrent. 4 random people that had their whole lives to live, and just imagine the families. That's devastating. If someone killed, my brother, I'd be out for blood. I can't even imagine what they're going through. And I hope they catch whoever did it. And if it's Bryan, then, he deserves to be in prison.
Coming up,
It would be one of the biggest things if something went afoul so that DNA evidence is out.
This is obviously before he took the plea. It was me before he took the plea. It's interesting, though. Some of the interviews with his friends.
Kohberger, do you understand the charge in count 1?
Yes.
nearly 5 months earlier in December of 2022, police went to Bryan Kohberger's family home at 1:30 in the morning to arrest him. At the time, law enforcement sources said surveillance teams observed what they thought might be efforts to destroy evidence by Kohberger, so they were not surprised when they found him in the kitchen wearing latex gloves and placing trash into Ziploc bags.
It's extremely odd, suspicious behavior. It could very well come down to this is how he behaves on a regular basis, but it doesn't look good.
On Monday, May 22nd, 2023, Bryan Kohberger was arraigned in Latah County, Idaho, after a grand jury indicted him for the murders of Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan, and Xana.
I'm going to enter not guilty pleas on each charge.
Prosecutors vowed to seek the death penalty, and the trial was pushed back multiple times over 2 years, with disputes about evidence and witnesses, and to give both sides time to go through the evidence.
Just the sheer magnitude of information on an investigation like this, it's a momentous task, and these people are only human at the end of the day.
The decision to delay was devastating for the family of Kaylee Goncalves, who shared this on Facebook in August of 2023. We want to get this trial over. Just thinking it could be years absolutely kills me. Over the last several months, critical evidence has been revealed in court records, and legal experts said the case was stacked against him.
It's really hard to explain away why your DNA is somewhere that it has no reason to be.
Kohberger's team fought against the DNA being admitted in court.
The defense is mounting a challenge to hopefully get the evidence excluded from the trial, but clearly that hasn't flown with the judge.
The prosecutors also had key evidence showing Kohberger's Amazon purchase history.
According to the prosecution, Kohberger purchased a K-bar knife, a K-bar knife sheath. That's a pretty interesting detail given that they found a K-bar knife sheath at the crime scene. In the days after the November 13th homicides, he was also searching again on Amazon for a K-bar brand knife and also a K-bar brand knife sheath. They have portrayed that as him needing a replacement.
But as a defense attorney, where you're like, gosh, that is particularly insurmountable because it is so specific. The argument is that there is certainly an element of premeditation.
There were also receipts showing Kohberger had purchased a black face mask.
The prosecution has obtained a receipt from Dick's Sporting Goods that he bought a balaclava mask, which would match, as far as we understand, what was described by the second floor roommate in the home of the man who was in their home that early morning.
And another potential witness was recently made public.
A DoorDash driver delivered food to Xana Kernodle, and she has said that while in the neighborhood and making this delivery, that she saw Bryan.
A videotaped interview with police in September 2024 shows a woman being questioned in Pullman, Washington after an arrest for an unrelated traffic stop. She says she was a DoorDash driver who delivered food to the home where the 4 college students were murdered.
Now I have to testify. They murder case too, so yeah, because I'm a DoorDash driver. Murder case with the college girls are suffering.
Certainly her credibility is going to be attacked and whether or not she's believable, but any good prosecutor is going to look to these other things to corroborate what she's saying. You know, DoorDash history orders to show who the DoorDash driver is, where she was at the time, what time the order was dropped off. And then there's this surveillance video that puts the Hyundai Elantra there at the same time.
And there's the cell phone record that shows Kohberger's phone stopped connecting to the network or was turned off at the time of the murders.
One of the most eloquent pieces of evidence here is the absence of cell phone information for 2 hours and 1 minute at or about the time that the crime was committed.
People on a jury have good common sense. Obviously, he is innocent until proven guilty, but the evidence in this case, from what we can see, is quite overwhelming.
It's not looking good for Bryan Kohberger. With all of the information that has come out, it is becoming increasingly insurmountable to explain these things away.
Just weeks before jury selection was set to begin, Kohberger agreed to a plea deal to avoid the death penalty.
A stunning turn of events in the quadruple murder trial of Bryan Kohberger. Tonight, sources tell CNN that Kohberger has agreed to plead guilty.
The decision was a cruel shock to the family of Kaylee Goncalves.
Talking to Steve Goncalves, father of Kaylee Goncalves, they're extremely upset about this. They wanted their day in court, and to be clear, they wanted the possibility of the death penalty for Bryan Kohberger.
This isn't what we should be doing. You don't deal with terrorists, and you don't deal with people who kill your kids in their sleep. So we'll never see this as justice.
Just to count 2.
Murder in the first degree as it relates to the murder of Madison Mogan. How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 3, as it relates to murder in the first degree for the murder of Kaylee Goncalves, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 4, the first degree murder of Xana Kernodle, a human being, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 5, the first degree murder of Ethan Chapin, a human being, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Steve Goncalves did not go into the courtroom for the plea hearing.
You said earlier that they made a deal with the devil. You still feel that way? Yeah.
Run with the devil.
We let her down. Let my daughter down. Trusting in this.
As bad as you could possibly imagine.
In a letter to the victims' families that was shared with the Idaho Statesman, the prosecution said, "We cannot fathom the toll that this case has taken on your family. This agreement ensures the defendant will be convicted and will spend the rest of his life in prison and will not be able to put you and the other families through the uncertainty of decades post-conviction appeals." Maddie Mogan's father, Ben, told CBS that avoiding a trial brings him some relief.
We can actually put this behind us and not have these future dates and future things that we don't want to have to be at, that we shouldn't have to be at, that have to do with this terrible person. We get to just think about the rest of our lives and have to try and figure out how to do it without Maddie and without the rest of the kids.
For now, the victims and friends of the victims will move forward, healing in their own way.
It's something that no parent should go through, and especially how it happened. It just broke all of our heart. Yeah, it's something that I'll never get over. I mean, you can talk about it and do counseling and things like that, but nothing's gonna bring our kid back. And yeah.
You don't ever think that you're gonna be interviewed by the FBI or have all these news outlets reach out to you. It's been very surreal for all of us. With time, it's getting easier, but still, like, every day, there's something that happens, or I think of Kaylee, in some way. And I just hope that I can continue living big enough for both of us.
Okay. What do you guys think? That was interesting. Hearing like some of those interviews with the different people that knew Bryan and then the friend of Kaylee. I was just going through some groups to see if there's anything else that I wanted to include. There is this video that I might have to watch with you guys, Nancy Grace, because it looks kind of good, maybe. I mean, I want to see what she has to say, I guess. And then I was just kind of going through some of these groups to see if there's anything else interesting. But I think covered about everything. But let's watch this video, and then I know I kept saying I'm gonna end it after this, but I just saw you know how I like Nancy Grace. I know some of you guys don't like her, but it's the title goat is called. It's not even on Nancy Grace, it's on Fox, but it says Nancy Grace goes off on Kohberger prosecutors after shocking plea deal. All right, let's see. You gotta watch it, guys. This will be the last. Okay.
Bringing Nancy Grace now, host of Crime Stories with Nancy Grace on YouTube. It's good to see you again, Nancy. Good morning to you. I have a specific question for you. Some of the families apparently were told are okay with the plea. Some are clearly not. Here is one on NBC, today's show. Watch.
It's my daughter. It's our children. How can you say it's just when you haven't even talked to us? They told it it's not really about us. It's about their process. Just shut up and get on board and deal with it.
Sorry.
That's really what they told us. Idaho's failed. They failed me. They failed my whole family.
Let's see what goes down together a little later today. I don't know what the prosecutors know. I don't know what the judge knows. Maybe they think this is the best deal possible. What do you think? You were out there in the very early days of this case.
Technical legal term, it's BS. I'm a crime victim, and a lot of what happened at my fiance's murder trial is really blurry to me. I think I'm not allowing myself to remember it because it was so painful. But I do remember the felony prosecutor coming and speaking to me and Keith's family before he went forward with the trial or any potential sentencing, and spoke to us and had agreement with us. Long story short, I feel that the family was left out of the equation. I've got the letter that they sent the family. A letter? Really? A letter instead of a meeting? Listen, there is DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, on the murder weapon she found under the dead body. What more do you really need? I find this weak. It sounds to me like somebody didn't have the spine to take the case to trial. And I agree with Goncalves.
Wow. Why do you say they didn't have the guts to do this? The spine, in your words. Why would that be if you think the evidence is so strong? Well,
because why else would you take the easy way out? Yes, it's going to be a long trial. It's going to be a battle start to finish, and you don't know the outcome. You're rolling the dice, but that's what trial work is. Man up. Get in there. Do it. That's what they're paid to do. They have an incredible treasure trove of evidence. And all this business about the family gets to look him in the eye at sentencing, he probably won't even look at them. And at sentencing, they speak. He doesn't. We will never know what really happened. We would learn that at trial, but there's not going to be a trial. He will be forever shrouded in the mystique like Ted Bundy and Rex Heuermann and BTK. You know what? You know what's going to happen, Bill Hemmer? He's going to take this deal. He's going to go to jail. And then one day we're going to see him on a Zoom at some big symposium where he tells his side. It's total BS.
So explain.
He's going to have girlfriends,
why
pals,
would
make money.
Yeah.
It's not fair.
Sorry for interrupting. I've got 30 seconds left. I really want to get an explanation for you. Why would the judge allow him to not explain what happened? And maybe there is an explanation that he offers in court today. We'll see that live together.
There is. It's
Go
called
ahead.
the Fifth Amendment. Right to remain silent. Now, the state could have made it a condition to make him speak.
That's the point.
They didn't. He is not allocuting, and he doesn't have to.
But the state could have forced him, if he wants the deal the way he wants it, to explain what went down.
That's right. And they didn't. That's what I'm screaming here. It's not fair to the victims' families. They're going away empty after this without any answers. I know what happened to Keith. They will never know what happened to their children. And let me tell you one more thing. I thought I knew all about grief and mourning when he was murdered. Until I had the twins, I knew nothing. I cannot imagine what these families are going through. And I even feel guilty talking about it because we don't know the suffering they've had. And now this. There's a remote chance the feds could step in the way they did with Luigi Mangione and Rodney King. Do I think it's going to happen? It would not be double jeopardy. It would not. Could it happen? Yes, because Kohberger crossed state lines to do this.
Okay.
Will it happen? Probably not.
Got it. Okay. From 1 o'clock this afternoon, our time in New York, 11 a.m. in Boise, Idaho. We'll watch it on camera together. Nancy, thank you.
Wow. I found one more article I want to read. It sounds interesting. I keep finding more stuff, but okay. It says, Bryan set to die in one of America's worst prisons with feces smeared cages, riots, and biohazard ventilation system. Let's see. It says Bryan is set to spend the rest of his life in one of America's worst prisons, a maximum security hellhole that faces accusations of feces smeared cages, brutally violent guards, rioting inmates, and a biohazard ventilation system. The 30-year-old convicted killer of 4 will serve his sentence in the state's most brutal prison alongside Chad Daybell, the child murderer and husband of Doomsday Call mom Lori Vallow, as well as 2 of Idaho's most notorious serial killers. Idaho Maximum Security Institution, where Kohberger expected to be sentenced to life in prison, opened in 1989 and hosts the Gem State's most disruptive male residents and violent criminals. It's been named one of the worst in America. Oh, wow. Since then, it has developed a reputation as not just the toughest prison in the state, but one of the harshest in the nation. IMSI was named one of the 15 worst prisons in America by Security Journal Americas in 2024, alongside other infamous institutions, including Louisiana State Penitentiary, aka the Farm, San Quentin in California, and Attica Correctional Facility in Western New York. The magazine highlighted its alleged harsh treatment of inmates, excessive use of solitary confinement, and lack of mental health resources. Violence between inmates and allegations of excessive force by corrections officers were also brought up, as well as overcrowding leading to a tense and volatile environment, the outlet wrote. In 2016, the newly appointed director of the Idaho Department of Correction looked to reform the state's use of solitary as punishment. Many of the inmates were locked away in solitary confinement for 23 hours a day. This meant little to no human interaction, food in cells, and only showering 3 times a week, a pattern some inmates live under for decades. Well, we know Wade was showering. He got the option of 3 times, but sometimes he only did it twice or once a week. So, I mean, 3 times a week in jail probably isn't that bad, right? 97% of these guys are going to get out and walk into an Idaho community. Kempf told KBOI, if we treat them like crap, if we treat them like animals, they're going to walk out of prison like that. The prison came under fire in the past for excessive use of solitary confinement. That's not, what is it? That can't be where they do solitary confinement, right? That would be like they can't even move. What is that? Is that like where the... Oh. In particular, he highlighted the dangers of excessive solitary confinement for inmates. You do that for 10 to 15 years, you've created a monster out of that prison, he said. Kohberger 30, who on Tuesday pleaded guilty to killing 4 University of Idaho students in their Moscow home while they slept in November 2022, has been held maximum security at Ada County Jail in Boise since the trial was moved to the state capital. But he is expected to be transferred to Idaho Maximum Security Institution, some 10 miles south, following his sentencing hearing on July 23rd. The remote prison is surrounded by a double perimeter fence along with razor wire and electronic detection system, 24-hour armed patrol. Last year, 90 inmates at the institute went on a hunger strike demanding better treatment and services. Says the prison has been known for its punishing conditions. Hosts more than 500 of the Gem State's most dangerous and violent criminals. They complained of feces-covered recreation cages, long bouts of isolation, serious medical care delays, and a dirty HVAC system that they compared to a biohazard. Wow. The prison was forced to confirm that it halted many services, including access to certain religious practices in 2020 in response to unprecedented staff shortages brought by the COVID-19 pandemic. To quell the riot, prison authorities used pepper spray and tear gas on the inmates. Well, I mean, in general, that's bad for like people that, are going to be rehabilitated and be out in society. People, but like it kind of makes me happy that that's where Bryan's going to be, right? For what he did to the, to those 4. I mean, I know the families wanted the death penalty, but this might kind of bring them a little bit of like, okay, so he's going to be in a really bad prison. But in general, that's bad for, I feel like, the people that didn't murder people that's in there. I don't know. What do you guys feel about it? It says the IDOC claimed that the protest ringleaders wanted to force staff to segregate housing by gang and racial affiliation. Force staff to segregate housing by gang and racial. Can you imagine? Wow, that'd be really dangerous. Says they didn't respond immediately to requests for comment. He'll be with Chad. Wonder if he'll be. So the prison built to replace the original Idaho Penitentiary, which was built even before Idaho became a state in 1890, can house a maximum of 549 inmates, including a dedicated section for mentally ill offenders. It offers restrictive housing beds and disciplinary detention. It also includes Idaho Death Row, where all 8 of the state's male inmates facing death sentences are held. Serial killer Gerald Pizzuto is on death row at the prison. Kohberger's deal, which also spared him a trial in the chance of death by firing squad, means he must spend the rest of his life in prison with no opportunity for parole or appeals after the PhD criminology student admitted murdering Ethan, Kaylee, Xana, and Madison. Other famous inmates at the prison include Daybell, currently on death row for murdering his first wife, Tammy, as well as his second wife, Lori Vallows, 2 children, Tylee and JJ. Serial killer Gerald Pizzuto is awaiting execution for 4 1985 murders in Idaho and Washington. Also held at the prison is Thomas Eugene Creech, who is feared to have murdered more than 40 people. Holy mackerel, more than. Wow. Another resident is serial killer Thomas Eugene Creech, who is believed to have murdered as many as 43 people between 1974 and 1981. So in 7 years, he murdered 43 people. Wow, that's crazy. That's just horrible. I can't even. Oh, that's just evil. Interesting though. I mean, so what do you guys feel like? I guess for Bryan, it's good to know that somebody, that he's going to be in a bad place for what he did. But what do you guys feel like in general? It's probably not good to have a prison that is like that, right? Because I mean, like they said, some of these people are going to come back out in society, and it's going to create. Whew. But I might sound stupid, but those little things, that wasn't for solitary confinement, right? It looked like it was like for, like a phone, but I didn't see any phone, like a phone booth. But the weird thing is they, under the picture, it says they've came under fire or in the past for excessive use of solitary confinement. So are they saying that is, they're insinuating that that's the solitary confinement, and this little thing, there's no way, right? There's no way that people could spend like 24, 48 hours or days in that. That looks like a phone booth or something. Yeah, because they would have to come out to go to the bath. Yeah, I can't, because I mean, there's no bathroom or anything in it. But what is that? Like, why do they have that written under this? I don't know. I would hope not. That's so small. But what else is that for? I'm trying to figure that out. What do you guys think? Is anybody listening to me? Anybody have any ideas, chat? A previous prison director warned that solitary was turning inmates into animals. Oh my God. That's what I'm saying, Kim. That's what I've been trying to ask you guys, but I don't think anybody's really even listening to me because nobody's answering. Well, the people that are chatting aren't, but there's a lot of people watching that aren't chatting. That's why I try to get new people. Everybody say hi that's watching that isn't chatting. I like getting new people in the chat. What's it about, Nick? Well, no, because you can't post. I don't think anything that doesn't let you post in chat. So there's nothing in chat. I don't see anything that's. But tell me about it. Is it about Bryan or is it about something else? Hey, Mystic, Jocelyn. But why? It's weird that they have this and then they put that in there. All I want to know is the Into the Abyss, is that about Bryan Kohberger or is that about something else? Because if it is, I'll look it up, but if it's not, then I'll just wait to maybe look it up for something else. But there's not going to be any links because YouTube doesn't let you post links in chat, so I don't know. Okay, but before I leave you guys, this is about Wade real quick. So I guess her spa caught on fire. Did you guys hear that? Hey, Elle. I wanted to show you real quick. Okay. Thank you, Amber. Thank you. I was just curious, like, what is that? Because yeah, nothing that I've seen like solitary confinement, like in movies or like what we've seen pictures and stuff. Of course, it doesn't look like that. But when they were talking about like how extreme this prison was and it's the worst, and then they print this under this, it's like, is this like a new thing? Like that they are really excessive because that'd be crazy to have something like that. But I know typically I've seen like the areas of what it typically looks like. But I'm just saying, since they were talking about how this is the worst and they're like, it's so crazy. I thought, could they be doing something like that? But yeah, I know typically it's like, because they got to go to the bathroom and it's just like this dark place. There's no light there's not a lot of light that comes in it. It's like all dark. Yeah, I've seen it. I just didn't know if this prison was using something else or something. I wish they wouldn't have done that though. Like they show us these things and we don't know what they are, and then they put that under it about solitary. Okay, hold on. Let me show you this article real quick though about Mila's spa. Mila, oh, I hope that sucks. I hope that's gonna be okay. Well, she probably has insurance, but check this out, guys. Look, so Mila, if there's some people that haven't been following the Wade case that are in here, because not everybody is familiar with the Wade case, but Wade Wilson, his girlfriend at the time when he murdered those Diane and Christine, was Mila. He was with Mila, and she has a spa, and I guess it caught on fire. Let's see here. Says fire damages Mila's spa on West First Street. No injuries reported. Let me watch the video, and then we could watch. Then I'll read.
You can have a kitchen makeover.
Let the ad play first. Man, that's crazy.
Busy this morning, putting out a fire in downtown Fort Myers. They say that fire broke out at Mila Spa, which is on West First Street, close to Centennial Park. Fort Myers Fire says the call came in about 5:20 this morning. So far, they're saying there are no injuries and that they were able to put that fire out in about 15 minutes. Fire crews say there was significant damage, but the good news is they say it looks like it can be repaired.
Oh, shoot. I was reading a chat and I missed. Oh. Gotta read. Hold on. Let me bring it back. Yeah, no, I know there's videos on some of those articles, but sometimes usually it's the same thing that's in the article that's in the video. So sometimes I just read the article. Sometimes I play the video because sometimes I'm annoyed with like having to wait for the ad to pass. But okay. So it says a fire broke out early Tuesday morning at a commercial building on West First Street, causing significant damage but no injuries, according to the Fort Myers department. Firefighters said they responded to the call at 5:20 a.m. at Mila Spa, located at, and it gives the address. Arriving crews saw smoke and flames both outside and inside the concrete building. They said the fire was extinguished by 5:34. So basically, the call was at 5:20. So in 14 minutes, they extinguished it, with firefighters completing a search of the building by 5:40 and clearing the scene at 5:44. No injuries were reported. While the spa sustained significant damage, officials believe the building is repairable. That's good. The cause of the fire is still under investigation, with authorities expecting to have a better assessment of the damage in daylight. Here, let me watch. I didn't see. I want to see. Did they show a video of it for something like this? Like, it's sometimes I like to play the video because I want to see if it shows it on fire. I don't know. I missed what it showed when I first played it. Let me see here real quick.
Very busy this morning, putting out a fire in downtown Fort Myers. They say that fire broke out at Mila Spa, which is on West First Street, close to Centennial Park. Fort Myers Fire says the call came in about 5:20 this morning. So far, they're saying there are no injuries and that they were able to put that fire out in about 15 minutes. Fire crews say there was significant damage, but the good news is they say it looks like it can be repaired.
Why does that look like it's a bonfire? It looks like it's on the side and it's just a bonfire on the side of the building. Well, that's crazy. Huh. Really interesting. All right, guys. Oh, let me exit out of everything. Exit out of every. Oh, shoot. I hope I saved that. That was my document. I hope I did. Oh, well. I didn't mean to exit out of that. All right, guys. Well, that's that. I have the calls that I played today in the live mixed with the kiosk messages, the Wade and Rosemary. I took out just the calls that it's just like 1.5 calls that I already have it uploaded. I have to publish it for my pre-record. So remember, always look at pre-records. So I'll do part 2 soon, maybe tomorrow or the next. I'm gonna do part 3. I'll probably have them all out this week. And then what I'll do for each part is I'll take just the calls from the video and put it in a pre-record. People just want to do the calls. But part 2 has some messages mixed with it. But part 3 is just calls. It's so but yeah. So I don't know when I'll do part 2, either tomorrow or the next day. So, and I'm going to do it as a premiere. I like doing that. So watch out for that. And watch out for my pre-records, like I said. And I don't know what else to say. I do gotta work on the McDaniel stuff. I know that's an old case, but it's still interesting. And I had ordered those files a couple years ago, and I didn't realize some of the stuff that I got. Didn't even realize I got like a bunch of stuff that I could put out. Hey, Alsane, what's up? All right, I'm gonna work on some timestamps for this video, so look for those. And what are you saying, Kayla? Those pods are just used when prisoners get into. Okay. Kayla, what are you saying? Let me go back and see what you're saying. You're saying that's what I'm saying. Was it her extra building or yeah, I don't know. It looked like it was just a bonfire on the side. It's making it seem like it was the spa, but it's repairable, so it must not be that bad. But it looked like it was just like a bonfire on the side. So I wonder, maybe they were having a bonfire. No, they would have said that, I bet. That's weird. It didn't look like it was a building. It looked like it was either like a mini little thing or a bonfire. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'll have to see. Yeah, they said there was no nobody injured. I just read the article. They said no injuries. The building's repairable. They got it out in 14 minutes. No injuries. Everybody's fine. Yeah, it said it on the article. So, yeah, hopefully she had insurance. I would think she would. If not, and she could be screwed. But if she does, she'll be good if she has insurance. Okay, guys. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, okay, let's yep. All right, y'all. Well, I will see ya. All things LTD 805. Look for my part 2. Like I said, the part 2 has more calls than today. Like I said, I'm sorry that today only had a call and a half, but I wanted to do the combination of the messages with the calls. So I wanted to yeah, and a lot of the messages came before the calls. So that's why there was, and I didn't want I wanted to break it up. So I didn't want it to be like a couple hours. I wanted each to be like an hour long. But Kohberger, yeah, I'll keep up to see if there's any more interviews. I'm sure people will be coming out, like people that couldn't talk about it. There'll be maybe more friends interviews will come out of Bryan. Maybe the families will be more interviews. So I'll try to keep collecting them, and then when I have maybe a week's worth, I'll do another live on it, or maybe even sooner. But okay, but July 11th in a couple days is when that series starts. What is it going to be called? It's going to be on is it Amazon? Amazon Prime, right? The Idaho series. I think it's a 2 or 3 part series. A Day in Idaho, or I forget what it's called now. Shoot. I looked it up earlier today and I always forget the name of it. Amazon, yeah. So I'm going to be watching that. I'm not going to stream it because I'm sure they'll copyright, but we could watch it. You know what we could do? All watch it. Let's have some homework. We all watch it and then we could discuss. Jocelyn, that's what we could discuss. Everybody watch the series. Are they doing back to is it going to be like once a week, or is it all going to be together? We could watch it all, right? So let's watch it. And then this weekend, let's do an open panel talking about the series. Yeah, you want to? One Night in Idaho. That's what it's called, Kayla. Thank you. I couldn't think. One Night in Idaho. Yeah. And then wait, how is it going to be set up, Kayla? Do you know? Is it going to be because isn't it 2 or 3 parts? I wonder, is it going to be like the 11th and we could watch all 3 parts? I wonder. So let's say if there is just one this weekend, 1 episode, whatever there is Friday, unless if they do, okay, we'll either do it Saturday or Sunday. So whatever's available, watch it. If there's just 1 part, 2 parts, 3 parts, whatever. And then we'll do the open panel Saturday or Sunday and talk about it. Yeah. One Night in Idaho. Yeah. That's what we were talking about. Somebody said it. Who was it again now up there? And it's Amazon Prime, I believe. So no, I was so confused all the same because I saw the Peacock. I'm like, wait a minute, how many are there? There's the Peacock one, and then I saw this one that we just watched today. And then I was like, wait, what was the one now that they were talking about last week? But I figured it out. But no, I haven't watched the Peacock one yet. I might watch that. Too. We could talk about that one too. Idaho Student Murders. That's the Peacock one, Nick. Idaho Student Murders. The one I was talking about is the One Night in Idaho. So everybody watch that. That for sure. I want to watch for sure. We'll talk about it. And then if anybody watches the Peacock, we could talk about that too. All right, guys. I'll see you guys tomorrow or the next day, or be looking out for the premieres. Have a good one.